The thing that pops me about that intro is, for the folks that just listen, that is like just a horrid sound in their ears to start the show. You know, it's just glorious, glorious stuff. I'm happy with that. I'm proud of it. It sets the tone. All right, folks, we're here. Another month, another Grin Grappler. And those of you that have been following along as I've been doing shows over this last few weeks, I've been very excited. Very much anticipating this one. I'm locked in. I'm ready to go. Booker T, our subject expert panel, as always. Your favourite Grin Grappler quartet. Bobby Two Shoes, how are you, mate?
I'm fired up, man. You know, this is always my favorite show of the month, and this is probably going to be no different. I had a hell of a time watching the matches and excited to get into it.
Yes, sir. Yes, indeed. It's going to go in many different directions, I feel. Contrarian Alex, how are you this evening?
Well, I'd hope in a much more positive. You and I, Joey, had another long recording session just 2 days ago, and some of the directions that took were a bit of a downer. So I think we're here to kind of redeem ourselves. And, we're not here tonight to talk about the greatest wrestler of all time, but I think there's a lot of positives to say.
I agree, certainly. And while we're on the subject, we must do this plug. We'll do it at the end, but we'll do it now too. We got together over the weekend for the Tough 20 finale, our finale, right? With the Where Are They Now, all that's happened since. And in the midst of it, I sort of began to sport this rich resentment. And I think, Alex pitches to me, when you guys hear this, you'll know what we're talking about, but he pitches to me for my sort of farewell words. And they appeared to be sort of like a it's over, which it's been kind of on brand for me recently. So it was a hell of a time, though, wasn't it? That was a great time, and the whole season. Well, what an absolute pleasure that was.
Yeah,
absolutely.
The finale. There's no kind of way to end it, but kind of on a dour note with what the UFC has become. But yeah, Joe's just, I pitched to him. He's like, I don't fucking care. Let's get out of here. You know.
Yeah. And that's gonna be a two-parter, right? The finale.
Oh yeah, so, yeah. It was a big boy. Yeah, that'll be a two-parter.
Tremendous. There you go, folks. Catch up. Still got time to binge for the finale. It's a hell of a time. The Oracle of Wrestling. Many have called you the Ultimate Fighter through the years. How are you this evening?
Cool story. I watched the first season of Ultimate Fighter after Raw as it aired.
There you go.
Oh yeah.
I remember it very, very well. But I'm good. You know, I've got our pal Booker T on right now. Of course, I'm mute.
Yep.
Watching NXT. I wanted to see the Steph Vac doubleheader. So, first one was, it was fine.
She wrestled Fallon yet?
No, Fallon's last. She wrestled Jada Parker, and that was okay. Yeah. Here to talk about one of my all-time favorites, growing up, and I'll elaborate on that more. But yeah, I'm very excited to cover Booker.
I am too.
Joey,
I know. Yes, mate.
Real quick before we get into it, I get so used to Zoom with the shoot job that it has the little like fucking hand raise gimmick, so I can go bloop bloop. So I just have to cut you off, and I feel bad about that. But real quick here. It looks like Chattanooga is about to win their NIT quarterfinal. The University of North Texas is about to play their game after this. And being a proud alum of North Texas and a son of the DFW area, real quick, I just want to give a shout out to Bill Mercer, who passed away recently.
Good call.
And he's someone we've had a bit of fun with here on Grin Grappler, specifically on our Von Erich episode and our Terry Gordy episode. We've had some fun with him, but he was someone who was a whole lot more the DFW area than his pro wrestling commentary. He was a professor at UNT. I didn't take any of his classes, but I have several friends that I graduated with that were not at all wrestling people, that were pretty they had a hard time hearing the news of his passing. He was a great guy. He broke the Kennedy assassination news in Dallas. He covered one of the Cowboys Super Bowls. He did obviously all this stuff with World Class, but at the University of North Texas, he was a professor. When they opened up the then new football stadium back in 2012, the announce booth was called the Bill Mercer booth, and so like he's someone who's come up in here before, so I feel kind of within my rights to give him a shout out. And I just wanted to. I'm wearing a UNT shirt right now, and I wouldn't be doing my due justice if I didn't call that out.
Fine by me, and I think we all absolutely co-sign.
Alex, did you watch that clip I sent you that Chris Zellner posted?
Yeah,
it's awesome, wasn't it?
Yeah. And UNT had their last home basketball game in the NIT tournament on Sunday, I believe that was. And they did a little, during commercial break, a little tribute to Bill Mercer on the Jumbotron there and had the graphic. And it's been, all their social media accounts have been sharing it, whatnot. And honestly, like all of the Cowboys play-by-play guys on the radio and shit he was a mentor to so many people. So it's been like an actual loss outside of the wrestling world for the DFW area.
Yes, I apologise if I was slightly delayed there or freezing, folks. My thing's glitching here, but hopefully I'm still here. Am I here, boys?
Yep.
You are. Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay.
Not to steal your show, Joe. I just wanted to give a shout out.
No, I co-sign completely, absolutely. And certainly, I remember on the Von Erichs episode, I was certainly going in that path a few times. It's very fitting. Before we get started, RC is a new member here in the land of grins. I believe it said JHP tier, but it doesn't matter. I can't see on StreamYard. And either way, any tier, you get a ton of shows. So I think on Gold in March there was like, I think we're up to almost 30 shows for the month. I think maybe not Gold exclusives, but all together, so maybe 20 plus. And the JHP tier, you get I think over 10 a month. And the new thing you get access to the LNG Gold Discord, which I'm going to try and put the link in every LNG Gold stream, but we've been watching. So I've been teaching the kids about the Midnight Express and the Rock and Roll Express, and
good job.
We're slowly but surely, Oracle.
Everything before 1998.
We're doing it very just gradually. I kind of lure them in with the FTR, and I go, okay, now let's look at the heavenly bodies. Let's learn. Let's think about this. Okay. Thank you, RC, for becoming a member. I hope you enjoy it. The grins, brother. All right. Booker T. This is, I think, the kind of spiritual sibling to this, I think, would be Scott Hall, in the sense that legendary wrestler and a guy whose work I really like watching, but doesn't necessarily always convert that work into like sparkling classics. Now, I will say Scott Hall has, of course, those ladder matches, right, which are iconic matches, and no matter what Ric Flair claims, he was actually part of those matches. Booker is without those, but I think the comparison works, and I think his reputation among wrestlers is, kind of established, and a celebrated pro, certainly. But someone that I think, it's strange, his legacy is very secure from like a star point of view. I think everyone acknowledges what Booker was, and, his longevity as a TV figure, and also what a success story he was, but very seldom do you see him like discussed actually as just a pro wrestler, the mechanics, his best matches, so on and so forth. So we're already going to do more of that tonight, but we're going to cover the whole thing because, of course, that's what we do around these parts. Let's start, as we always do, by talking about our individual fandom for the wrestler. Bobby, Booker T, your fandom when it comes to him, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, it starts in 2002 when I started watching. He was there already. He was in the fold. He was in commercials and stuff too. He was on the cover of a couple of the video games. Definitely Raw 2 with him and Goldberg and I think Scott Steiner, Triple H, someone. Yeah, but so he was on that one. Like I said, just in a lot of commercials. He's in a Hungry Man commercial right around when I started watching, which popped me. And yeah, just kind of a guy that was always around either the world title or mid-card title pictures. And they also one of the guys that they made sure you knew from WCW was a big deal, I guess, because he was one of the first to jump. Plus, they could prop him up like that. So, yeah, they did a really good job from the jump kind of explaining why he was a big deal. And, so it does kind of date back to, right when I started watching.
I love it. Just one more question, Bobby, if possible. Any tips for someone watching this who's really enjoying the first 10 minutes, just blown away by it, and they want to show us early on how much they're enjoying the show?
Yeah, I mean, if you like the show so far, you can go ahead and smash the like button. First time, it's an odd number. 1, 3, 7, 9, 11.
What about
13,
5? You
15.
skipped 5.
Did I skip 5?
Yeah. Don't do whatever you do. Don't do 5, folks. You gotta go straight to 7. I'm proud of this stupid bit. I don't know if you can tell, folks. We do it on every show. All right. So personally, and I was really trying to ponder this and think it through. I was like, this all started with a month ago. We locked in Booker T, and I, for over the last few weeks, have been just kind of working through this in my head. And it starts with the first question: do I like Booker T? And I do. I do like Booker T. there have been times where I haven't liked Booker T. We'll get into Harlem Heat, which I have a very complicated relationship with because I've seen a lot of the mid-90s WCW pay-per-views feature some Harlem Heat matches that no one should ever watch, ever. They should be taken from the record. But I always like watching him wrestle, as we mentioned earlier. And admittedly, I think his reputation among fans like losers like us, hardcore fans, whatever, definitely took a hit of sorts when he started like giving an opinion on every topic in wrestling, I think. And that's I don't even say that to knock him, but it absolutely is what happened because he began to appear in every headline. Like Booker T on insert topic, you know. So that probably didn't help my viewpoint of him for a while. But as my taste has changed, I think more fond of him because I just generally like his work, and he has a very unique style too. He wrestles with a lot of flair, right? And I discovered something this evening that actually kind of explains that so much. We'll get into in a moment, but I do like Booker T. He is not someone I would be quick to bring up in a favorite wrestler conversation, nor is he someone I'd be quick to bring up in a greatest wrestler conversation. But he's a real star who had a really impressive career. And I think when you take a half step back, it's hard to be anything but positive about what he achieved and the kind of spirit of which he achieved it. Interesting one. Contrarian Alex, your Booker T fandom. Take it away.
Okay, so when I was a kid, like a lot of my like childhood, like little kid era, I was raised in a small town in Ohio, very like Pleasantville-esque type, you know, Midwest. So to say like in my young childhood I didn't really get exposed to like other cultures and stuff would be an accurate statement. So I remember the first time I saw Harlem Heat on TV, I was like, these are the coolest looking dudes I have ever seen in my life. Like I thought they were so fucking awesome. And I tried to find it, but I found the box, but I'm like, I'm not digging through all that shit to get to it. The original San Francisco toy makers, I have the Harlem Heat tag team and the black gear with the flames. And man, I don't remember if it was a Christmas or a birthday or whatever it was. There was one year I got like a bunch of those WCW figures, and brother, main eventing and selling out every night in my territory was the Nasty Boys against the Harlem Heat. And I had it was the one of those washable Crayola red markers. And the fucking Nasty Boys were getting juice every single night, man. It was just Harlem Heat beat the shit out of them. Like this was so much so that I remember I had really like bad allergies as a kid, and one of the things my mom gave me when I slept to try to help was those fucking breathe nose strips or whatever you put on. I didn't know what they were. I just thought it was like a Booker T thing. I was like, hell yeah, I get to wear what Booker T wears. So that's like my original childhood memories of him, and then. This is the point I'm going to circle back to at the end, is that like Booker T is one of the wrestlers of modern times that's so easy to take for granted because he's just been around forever. And but yeah, I remember also him showing up at King of the Ring in 2001 was the thing that made me believe the invasion angle was going to be the biggest thing of all time. Because like the way that happened and everything, and like Booker T was like a name, and I mean, jump to the chase here. Booker T is the only one who actually, you know, took pennies on the dollar, and it turned out to be worth it for him and that whole deal. But yeah, I remember as a kid just thinking Harlem Heat was so cool. Booker T was so cool. I remember I thought it was so awesome when he started getting like a singles push in WCW. And then I also specifically remember when Russo just tried to make him The Rock, and I was like, what the fuck is he doing? Like being like 13 years old watching TV and being like, he's Booker T, what are you doing? And bring that all the way up to now. Booker T also in my adult years has been a point of comedy on commentary and whatnot. So it's, you know, a full spectrum of emotions and memories of Booker T.
And he's still... I find him still hard to get a gauge on, in the sense that he sometimes will say something and you'll say, man, that was really insightful from Booker. And then he'll, in the next sentence, he'll say something that you go, what is he talking about? I mean, he's the one that stunned me. I think I mentioned this elsewhere. Forward. Yeah, Penelope Forward. Inexplicably, on that Death of Who Killed WCW thing that Vice made, he was like he was the best talking head on the whole show.
Yep.
Everything he said on that show, I was going, "Yep, Booker's spot on." And this is after like 8 years of everything he said, me kind of just going, what is Booker talking about, man? What is he on?"
Have you ever
It's-
seen the confidential piece they did on like the history of the WCW Championship, where they bring
Yes.
up DDP and he's just like completely manufactured, like he's saying like all the nice things about everybody else. There's that, and for the purposes of this, I'm not going to touch on what he was talking about, but I know exactly what you mean because there's times
Yeah.
I've listened to him speak and being like, this guy knows exactly, like he's fucking dead on the nail right here. But yeah, then other times he'll be like, huh?
Yeah.
Are we living on the same planet?
He might be doing a bit, maybe. I
Just a
like your
genius
point.
comedian.
Yeah, mate, look, man, he is very funny.
Yeah.
You know, intentionally, unintentionally, somewhere in between. I love your point about taking for granted. That's every wrestling fan knows Booker. He's around. He's been around, and he's going to be around. I mean, he signed like a 10-year deal with WWE not that long ago. It might have been a longer time now because we're getting old, but
He's also, for the benefit of people like us, in that position of like, you know, the Lawler deal of like no
Yeah.
one's going to get in his earpiece and yell at him or tell him what to do.
Right.
So he's
yeah, it's just I think everyone just kind of goes, yeah, it's Booker T, but no one actually. It's very seldom do I log online and see like extensive conversation about the merits of Booker T. It's really interesting. Oracle, you mentioned earlier one of your favorites, mate. Talk us through your fandom when it comes to Booker T.
Yeah. So when I first started watching wrestling, the very beginning of the new millennium, many years ago now, a quarter of a century ago now, Booker T was getting a significant push on WCW television, and the one WCW pay-per-view I saw live as it aired was Bash at the Beach 2000. My uncle ordered that pay-per-view, and I watched that show, and I sat there perplexed as a 7-year-old child, not knowing what the hell was going on at the middle portion of the show involving Jeffrey Jarrett and Terry Bollea and Vincent Russo. I was very confused as a child. And then Booker T came out, and I said, "Oh, I like this guy. You know, looked cool. I'd seen him some on Thunders, whatnot, over the previous months, and because by God, I didn't switch over to Nitro. You know, I watched Raw, brother, and I saw him win the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. Became a fan that day. Didn't watch much WCW afterwards, but I remember the
neither did anybody else, so don't worry about it.
I remember the reaction after the night of King of the Ring 2001 of him coming back and like them covering that, and they did like the skits at WWF World and stuff where they were because they were at MSG for Raw and SmackDown, and like Angle and Austin were like chasing and like trying to find Booker, and like he pulled a fast one on him, whatever. Always thought he was entertaining, thought he was funny. The spin kicks, the scissors kick, the spinneroonies, all that shit just popped me as a kid. Bobby brought up the commercials, which were always fun to watch. I was a pretty big dedicated Booker fan, so much so that like I got like really into like the Gold Dust tag team and
Had some great matches.
very, very, very angry with the WrestleMania 19 debacle,
fair.
which was terrible on every level. And I really liked the Christian program because I liked both guys. Christian was one of the few heels I liked as a kid, and it was basically like him and Jericho were like my favorite heels. I didn't like any of the other heels, but like the Booker Christian IC title feud, I liked a lot. I liked the Mark Henry feud as a kid. I remember like one of the matches being most because I bought Armageddon 2003 on DVD when I was a kid, and I was like most excited for like that match on that show when I got it. So yeah, I mean, I was always a big Booker fan. The King Booker stuff in 2006, in 2006 was the last year before So I've mentioned this before. Chattanooga didn't have UPN. We had the WB. So SmackDown would come on. Either our WB affiliate or our Fox affiliate would come out like 11:30 on Saturdays. So like I watch like all the King Booker stuff late at night on Saturday, and like I'll just that stuff is just, and we'll talk. I mean, just
Yeah.
the final match on this thing is something to behold. But Booker, always favorite of mine. The main event Mafia stuff was just not good, but amusing. Always thought he was funny on commentary. I think he's probably, there are times where he annoys me on commentary. I think there are certain pairings he's better at, in my opinion.
Yes.
I think he, weirdly enough, I think a lot of people hated it. I think he's better with Michael Cole because Cole, even though Cole's like annoying, Cole, and yes, he does belittle Booker. It can get funny when they banter, especially if it's like some like shitty episode of TV. And like Booker's saying, like, I always used to crack up when he'd be like, so and so's in my Fave 5, and Mike Cole was like, Booker, you have 37 people in your Fave 5.
I forgot about the Fave 5. He was the first guy on TV that was giving like Brian props, though. Remember? That's a superhero D-Bry right there. Yeah.
I also remember his very bizarre hatred for Jason Jordan.
Yeah.
He was awesome that way, where he didn't care. He wasn't like Heenan, where he cheered the heels.
Yeah, he would take guys and stick with him, and he would stay with it. He would stay consistent with it the whole time. Yeah.
I mean, NXT is a pretty good fit for his vibe, but I do think his ideal destination would be like a modern equivalent of WCW Worldwide, right? Like just sitting there, just watching these dudes walk through the curtain and have random matches.
He's like kind of like
Dusty.
He's like what Dusty was in WCW.
Yeah, totally.
Like he's very entertaining. Sometimes he'll say shit that's like, what the fuck? And sometimes you're like, exactly like y'all said. He'll like, that's actually a good point,
He's vaguely problematic occasionally.
Correct. Like every time Seth Packer does her,
Yeah, he's an interesting guy.
One of the things I have just burned into my brain, I don't know why, but Money in the Bank 2011 is one of the all-time like Criterion Collection pro wrestling events. But in the opening match, it's one of the ladder matches, and I believe the first person hit the curtain is Sin Cara in that show. He does his entrance. Remember, he had the fucking trampoline where he would then senton into the ring. He hits it. He sentons. Pyro goes off, and Booker on commentary just goes, "Yeah!" That's like how it starts the show, and that's seared into my memory.
He gets very excited at times, and you never quite know why or when it's going to happen. It's tremendous.
Before we jump in, there's also pay-per-view that he does come. So he's on the TVs before because he comes back at the Rumble 2011 and has an unbelievable pop. But he's doing commentary for Elimination Chamber 2011, the Lawler Miz match, and like Lawler like decks Michael Cole or throws Miz in the Cole or something, and like Cole's like getting up like, and Booker just laughs at his face and goes, "You just got." It's one of the funniest.
There's like compilations, right, of Booker's crazy commentary lines. And, yeah, he's a character, man. I mean, it is what it is. Yeah. Nonetheless, we have a super chat here from our guy Fahad, I hit a couple of these the other night, and it was quite an explosive experience. Do one of you guys want to take the honors here from this wonderful super chat from Fahad?
All hail King Booker!
You went Charmel with it. I was expecting the. Here's a very particular way of saying
King Booker.
Yeah, there you go. That takes it out of you, right?
Yeah.
I did like 2 of those on the Raw Grin along, and I wanted to end the stream.
Or you can be like Regal when he becomes part of the King's Court or whatever, and say it 2,700 times on every SmackDown.
That thing on the Labs fan, Jack talks about that when he does the Scott Steiner. What? And he talks about he only has like 1 in him per episode because it takes it out of him.
Dude, just quickly, Scott Steiner did an interview with Chris Van Vliet, and it appears he's like mellowed, and then Hulk Hogan comes up and he just he just immediately returns to being Scott Steiner. It is an incredible piece of business, man. It's must see, that particular clip. Um, all right. Anyway, thank you again, Fard. Much appreciated. I'm going to put some comments on the screen as we go. And we should note this. This is important because, I mean, obviously, look at the screen here. This may not be the most comprehensive reflection of what Booker T meant for wrestling, because we do have to know. It goes without saying, for black wrestling fans, Booker T is like an iconic piece of the industry. And that's not to say it's a universal experience, but that has been a very common experience, certainly, right? And when he was a featured player in the timelines all of you guys mapped out there, he was an outlier in that regard. It was not a common thing, and it became obviously under the spotlight at WrestleMania 19 in a very negative fashion. Not in regards to him, but in regards to the way he was treated. So yeah,
it's the idea. Ron Simmons being the first black champion WCW had, and it's like it's not like they really continued that trend, and that was Booker found himself in that situation, and it is a weird part of history that we don't really have to dive into, but it and I'm not trying to give Vince Russo credit for anything, but it really seemed like he had an interest in like making him a star, probably in his own mind, but or in his own vision, I should say. But yeah, you're exactly right about the whole idea. I'm a fucking white kid living outside Toledo, Ohio, and I see this team. I'm like, wow, I've never seen anything like that. But to a whole other demographic, it's like a completely different thing. So yeah,
and I wanted to know that because I don't know where the conversation is going to go. And like I said it earlier, I like Booker, but I don't have like a strong connection to him, nor do I think he's like an all-time grappler in the sort of mechanical sense.
Yeah.
But it's really important to say because he is iconic and legendary, and general casual people that don't watch a ton of wrestling see him a certain way, and it's important that that's the obvious factor, no doubt about it.
He has a hit song named after him. And I don't mean a hit like a fucking karaoke bop. Like Bad Bunny's a legitimate musician.
Booker T is like culturally, he did cross over from pro wrestling, and that's how many of these we done now. This is our third. This marks 3 years. There aren't that many of them that you could say that for. Booker's one of them. Absolutely is.
And someone mentioned about his theme song in the Harlem Heat, and his theme, legitimately one of the all-time great theme songs.
Yeah. Oh, and for sure. Yeah.
Joe, absolutely. Do you remember that video of? I don't remember if it was before an actual fight, but there was a video of King Mo shadow boxing, and he was doing the Harlem Heat theme while he was doing it.
Yes, absolutely. And what was the sporting event? I'll find this and I'll give the example. But before we get into that, we always kind of map out the full story and we use our matches as the stops along the way. Booker's real life story, thankfully and rightfully, has been told pretty extensively. The A&E biography focused more on his real life story than his wrestling story because obviously it's far more interesting, and it's a great success story that's kind of just hosted by wrestling. Youngest of 8 children. Both of his parents had passed away by the age of 30. Booker was 13. He'd lost both his parents. He had his legal troubles, so on and so forth. And as a single father in his 20s, he was working at a storage company, and wrestling was a chance to change that. Ivan Putski's skull, dude. That I did not know that until today. Lost my mind. This is what I didn't know that clicked for me. He had a dance background. And as soon as you know that, a lot of the stuff he does in the ring makes sense. He has a very particular rhythm as a wrestler, right? The way he moves, very, very exact with his movements. So almost to a fault, if I'm being honest with you. Sometimes he takes so long to set his stuff up, it almost affects the rhythm of his matches for me.
But he's still not lumbering around the ring like Sid or some shit.
There was an old Death Valley Driver joke that Dean, may he rest in peace, would do do drawings and stuff. It would be drawings, and there was one of the guy waiting for Booker's head scissors, and he was time had passed, and he was like a skeleton waiting for the
But again, that's one of those things. As soon as I heard that, I was like, oh yeah, that makes actually perfect sense. It was worth noting that very much shined from his work, and He gets rolling in pro wrestling. He does the GI Bro shtick right out of the gate, which would come back later.
At the
And then
Sportatorium.
there you go, global, right? And Alex, I think you're probably the best suited to explain this for people just briefly, because obviously it's another story for another day. Explain kind of global and its place in the timeline of like trying to extend Texas wrestling, because there's a bunch of different ventures to try and continue what was in the early and mid 80s.
One of which actually covered in the Iron Claw when they talk about Jerry Jarrett buying it for the USWA, which of all my I love that movie, but all my qualms of it, Jeff Jarrett should have played Jerry Jarrett in that movie. But anyway, moving along here. Yeah, global, and then it was the CWA, CFA. There was another like global was just what you said. They were still fumes that people would come out to the fucking Sportatorium to see shit, and then eventually there was no more. There is the story. I don't know if anything exists of it. The WCW house show that ran at the Sportatorium that we've talked about. That, like, my God, if there was like a fan cam or something, talk about a holy grail. But yeah, exactly to your point. There's some Texas legends who are still active to this day that cut their teeth in global.
Yeah. Absolutely. There's the example I was thinking of, by the way, and now I've realised why I forgot it. Not one of our favourite fighters, but do you remember the Izzy moment with Booker at the press conference? As likeable as Israel Adesanya has been in quite some time, where he recognised Booker and he lost his mind. That was cool. I'm not a huge Izzy guy, but yeah, that was cool. That was what I was thinking of. But he eventually gets his break in WCW pretty early in his career, just a couple years in, 2 or 3 years into his career. And Sid is the man who gets them in, him and Stevie. And there is an incredible Sid interview clip where Stevie Ray is interviewing him at like a convention. And Sid goes, "Look, Stevie, you know the deal. I always thought you were the money of the team." And this is great in so many ways, because firstly, pop. Secondly, he's saying this to Stevie, who is Booker's brother, Look, he says it in a way that implies there was like a falling out, it's glorious stuff. But Sid did get them that break, and both Booker and Stevie have always been, quick to credit him and give him his flowers in that regard.
When Sid passed, I actually listened to Booker T's podcast he did, talking about, he very, very serious about it. He's the guy that gave him their break,
Yep, absolutely so. And they do not have a slow and steady start in World Championship Wrestling. That Sid relationship and their size and their look means they are put into the deep end immediately. They have a very, very problematic debut that did not make air. And then they emerge in the build to War Games, right? Now, let's be fair, not a exactly well-remembered War Games. A War Games most notable for the Shockmaster and all that came with that, but there they are. Booker and Stevie, their names were Kane and Cole. Yeah, Kane and Cole. They're a couple months into Major League National Wrestling. They're in War Games in the main event of Fall Brawl. Again, not a Mac classic by any means, but a rapid ascent. And then, in 94, they kind of sustain that spotlight and that push. They get Sherry alongside them, which I'm sure we're going to talk about here as we go. And they become tag title constants for the next few years, and they would rack up many a title win. We will meet them here. We will join them, I should say. In the midst of one of those reigns, we are starting here in 1995. This match was taped on October 11th. It aired on November 4th. We're at center stage, fitting really for a WCW legend that we would start there. The world's champions, Harlem Heat, Booker and Stevie, opposite fellow villains, Lord Steven Regal, beautiful Bobby Eaton, the Blue Bloods. Now, I have to say this. I have to take the bullet on this one immediately. There were 2 of these matches. Alex was confident in one, and the other one was much longer, and I said, quote, "We should live dangerously." Upon reflecting the tape and that decision, I think I made a mistake, to be honest with you. None of this is, like, terrible, but it's very much wrestled like a match that's, like, a match at center stage. This isn't really wrestled with the sort of, this will be a great conversation starter in 30 years. But nonetheless, there's some interesting things to look at. Oracle, what did you make of this trip to WCW Saturday night here, and 2 heel teams that are not a natural stylistic clash?
Yeah, we of course we get the awesome start where entrances where Harlem Heat and Sherry come out and they just yell at the camera, and it's always fucking awesome when they do that.
Yes.
Um,
And Tony Schiavone gets mad every single time they do it. So every time, pops me huge.
and then the match starts cool where they just start just like fighting.
Yep.
And then Booker hits a couple of spin kicks, and then like Bobby Eaton and Regal just work the arm, unlike Booker or Stevie, and then like they just like casually work the arm until the very hilarious finish, which is funny, where Sherry like tries to whack. Is it Bobby with Bobby Eaton with the
I think so.
Regal, because Bobby's
Mhm.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's like falling, and so Robert Parker, because they're doing this is during the Colonel and Sherry deal. He just grabs it and fucking wails, like
Yes.
wails Regal with
And-
it, and Harlem Heat retain the tag titles here. But yeah, this is it's actually not a terrible match by any means. It's just it's very much paint by numbers, but it's also a good sort of highlight, as someone put it in the chat, like Booker's in there cooking, hitting spin kicks and shit, and all of a sudden here comes Stevie, and he comes, and like for what it's worth, and I say this seriously, like of all the terrible wrestlers I've ever seen, I quite enjoy Stevie Ray. I mean, he's terrible,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
he rules because he's like a badass
He's-
motherfucker who says cool shit. So it's like
Yeah, he's
whatever.
big. Yeah. It's awesome.
He's very
Dude,
bad.
this
in the
is
ring.
incredible. Dude, they get the heat on Booker for like 7 minutes and then tags in Stevie, and he immediately tags back out to Booker T.
Yeah. It's when with Parker and Sherry at ringside, Stevie is like the 4th best wrestler in Harlem Heat. It's godly. There is some charm. There's always, we try and do this with the Grappler. Like, it's important to just see the guys in this environment where it's just like, it's just a match, right?
Yeah.
And they would have much worse matches. We could have done far worse than this. So it's always nice to see Bobby Eaton too. Bobby, what did you make of this match, mate?
Yeah, it was a fine enough time, for a TV show. I like Dusty on this match quite a bit, just kind of kicking the shit out of the Blue Bloods the whole time.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like Oracle said, and like it came up in the chat. Booker gets most of the match, and Stevie tags in for like a minute, and then just tags back out. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and it is a good starting point, kind of like you said, because of all the other matches are kind of in much bigger environments, and it's a good starting point.
Yeah, and we do have to be honest, and I think it's pretty apparent by the way I've started this. This show is going to be pretty positive towards Booker and celebrating Booker's career. The Harlem Heat catalog is not. It isn't. There's not many DVD compilations, to be honest with you. And again, let me be clear, folks. That doesn't matter. Have you seen a photo of them? They're one of the coolest looking teams ever. That's, as we've discussed, that's what wrestling really is. But for the sake of this show, they don't exactly have a sort of collection of classics for us to fight over. So it was what it was. Alex, I think I made the wrong choice here. But what did you think of the match?
I might have enjoyed Bell to Bell, the main event match, more, but like Dusty is unhinged on commentary in this match, so that there's literally a point where he says something, he's trying to establish a point, and then Tony doesn't respond, and Dusty just goes, "Hello?" Like that's what he says, like waiting for. And there's many jokes he makes about Tony being a sexual deviant and his infidelities. It's a hell of a time here with Dusty. So. Oh, and there's also a part where he calls Bobby Eaton Earl Bob. That Earl Bob's in the ring now. And Sherry, when they come through the fucking the doorway there, Sherry looks amazing, by the way, with her fucking smooth criminal hat on. But she walks through in like this kind of dress with a miniskirt on it, and Dusty goes, "Someone get my shotgun. There's a turkey on the loose on television right now." Which I don't know if that's some sort of euphemism, but Dusty definitely. And he also calls out when Sherry bends over the ring rope. We're on the wrong camera angle. Dusty's just out of control. But the match itself, I mean, this is not what you would expect to be like. Peanut butter and jelly. There's one, and the second Harlem Heat match we cover, WCW was way more comfortable running this than Vince or the WWF ever was. The idea of heel versus heels, and here there's cheating on both sides, and the crowd's into it in the way WCW crowds would be. The standard bearer is Dory Funk Jr., and Claudio's obviously made it that in the modern era, but goddamn, William Regal just had a sensational European uppercut. I took note of that. I'm sorry that I have so many Dusty quotes here to read, but he does he refers to them at one point as the Harlem Heatses. He pluralizes heat.
How great is it in hindsight, thinking about the conversation we just had, that our first match features like Dusty doing what Booker now does on television in a studio,
We already talked about Stevie just standing on the apron, getting tagged in, doing one thing, and then immediately going out. When Bobby Eaton gets tagged in the match the first time, you witnessed some of the most beautiful working punches you will ever see, because Bobby Eaton was the fucking real one. And then for the through line of this whole thing, I love that Booker does that knee drop that became a trademark of his in this first match that we cover. The kind of stalling, where he goes to his tippy toes and then slowly falls down. I like that he does that here, and that carries us through, our journey here. Aside from that, Eaton and Booker do a swinging neck breaker on the outside that sounds like it hurt like shit. And, this watching matches like this and talking about them with guys like you, it just makes me miss a time where not every match had to be some work rate classic thing,
Yeah. And it's also just nice to kind of, it's human watching the boys just sweat bullets out there, all of them. Just all of them. Just running hard, man. It's probably their fourth match of the day. Just
old Colonel Rob Fuller, man. He is the image of him with Harlem Heat is obviously very problematic, but he was a hell of a performer, man. And he comes out and scoops Sherry off her feet and whatnot. Yeah,
that stuff's fun, man. I mean, it's ridiculous, but it's fun, and it's still in effect. And let's get to the next match. But before we move on, you guys have all mentioned Dusty, but Dusty's thing in the match, as Bob referenced, is that the Blue Bloods they're not up to it. They haven't got the killer instinct. And then he loops all this back around. After they lose, he's like, now let me tell you, the Blue Bloods are ready to go. They're going to get them belts soon. He just does a full 180 in an instant. It's glorious, glorious stuff. Yeah, it's not a particularly good match. It's fine. I mean, it's nice to see Bobby Eaton. Now, we move forward a year here, and this is my favourite Harlem Heat match, personally. I was very bullish on getting this in the lineup. I may be alone. We'll see how it goes. October 27th, 1996, WCW Halloween Havoc. We're at MGM Grand Garden, brother. Tag straps on the line. Harlem Heat defending against the Outsiders. Red Hot, the NWO, running wild. Scott Hall, Kevin Nash. This, I believe, Bob, didn't this make one of those showcase modes on 2K, this match? Wasn't this like a NWO showcase mode match?
Yes, I believe it was. I'm going to look that up because, yes, I am fairly certain.
Because Stevie was on a game specifically so they could do this match. I'm almost certain of it, yeah. This has... And look, the criticism you would throw the way of this match is the Outsiders are babyface in this match, which has its own issues because it's not really a good time for them to be babyfaces. I would agree with that in the grand scheme of things, but in a vacuum, I think the atmosphere for this is so Vegas. It's so big fight feel. There's a fight in the crowd at one point, and they have to halt the action. I mean, I really, really had a good time with this. Bobby, what did you make of this Halloween Havoc tag title tilt, mate? Go for it.
Yeah, I thought it ruled. We talked about it a little bit, I think, in the Scott Hall episode, but the Outsiders could really work for quite some time there. And I mean,
yes,
it's really on display, especially the Scott and Booker sequences. Nash isn't in a ton and Steve Ray's not in a ton, obviously, but every time Scott and Booker are in there together, it's good stuff, man.
Absolutely.
And, I mean, I think it's a co-main event probably too. So yeah, it's a big spot for Harlem Heat, and I thought the match kind of ruled. I think the finish is good because it gets over that Nash and Hall are guys that you can't really reason with, even if it makes Colonel Bob look like a bit of a coward. But
yeah,
it was a good match.
Yeah, Buster brings it up in the chat here. It's a famous story Scott was told when he spat at Steve. He thought Steve was actually going to kill him. But they get a whole nice set piece out of that, and like you mentioned it, Bob, the Booker and Scott stuff in here is like, man, they were so graceful, those two guys. I tweeted a clip, and it was a very simple clip, and some people were like, what was the point of the clip? Just look at the way they run the ropes, the way they move, so distinct. And that beautiful Scott Hall punch we discussed on his Grappler. But yeah, I love their stuff here. I love the atmosphere. I like this match. Alex, what did you make of this?
It's, we did a full 3 hours on him previously, but one of my notes is how good was Scott Hall? Because this is arguably 96, both his work in the WWF to begin the year and his work throughout WCW. That's arguably his peak,
Yep.
He's fantastic here. I was skimming through the show, so it has a little fucking preview window, and I did make sure to watch the promo early in the show that Harlem Heat cut. Did you watch this show?
Yes, I did.
Oh, dude, when Colonel Parker says, "I've never seen such a bad bunch of eggs as this NWO," I thought that was fantastic. But then Booker, of course, being fucking awesome, says something to the effect of, "Y'all are crossing 110th Street tonight. We're gonna jump you in." Like, they're so fucking awesome, dude. Like, there's so much like realness to them. Even though I know they're not from fucking New York, they're from Texas, but still, it's so fantastic. I forgot there was this brief window where the NWO was doing the Sandman entrance, where they were coming through the crowd, and this is one of the shows that happens. Harlem Heat looks awesome is my next note. What you said is exactly right. Booker and Hall have a really good opening, but unfortunately the crowd's distracted because there's some brawls going on in them green seats, man. There is a really interesting dynamic here of the heel versus heel, which Bret was always like, his take on wrestling was a heel versus heel match from a fan perspective and being like a wrestler perspective is so much more interesting than like a babyface versus a babyface, a good guy type match. Because he's like, it takes a lot more work to get the crowd invested in it. And there are moments here where obviously like Sherry's trying to get involved, but the outsiders are, cheating in their own right. And speaking of which, this is still so fresh, the NWO and them making this turn. There's a Diesel chant at one point, and there's a Razor chant at one point in this match because the crowd, they're still in the process of hovering over to WCW, which makes it really interesting. There's an after sighting at ringside. The axe kick that Booker lands in this match is just absolutely wonderful. And the Harlem hangover he lands in this, which would become like a specialty move for him, but it was the finisher at this point in time. you can tell Hall, like, he's just kind of like laying there praying with his head on the side. He's like, all right, let's see. The ending is kind of weak because I if I had to guess, the cane was supposed to be gimmicked and like explode when he hit Stevie with it or something, but that doesn't happen. But whatever the case, man, it's a fun like one-off in the sense of, because we're right there where it's just going to become everyone who's not NWO is supposed to be the good guy and the NWO is the bad guy, and they're wrestling this team that's been established as like the local bad guys, and we're going to go at it now. And the crowd is, after the initial like thing with the fight in the crowd, they're very into what happens in this match, and it's a hoot. Good pick, Joe.
We should note too that once the fight happens, I wish I remember one of you guys might. Who is it on commentary goes, is it Hogan? Is it Bobby that says that? Is it Hogan? Because they all look on camera. You can see everyone's looking this way. So like the announcers sell it as though someone's coming through the crowd to do a run in, which I thought was tremendous. And then Shivani's pivot is like, well, NWO fans, WCW fans, they're fighting in the crowd. That's good stuff. Shivani here actually audibly gets angry about the Harlem Heat promos to camera. As they come out, they're talking to camera, and Tony is like, they just had an interview, didn't they? They just had an interview. Why do they have to do this now to camera? And he said on the podcast he hated it because he didn't know whether to talk over them or like to just go dead air and let them feel it. He hated it so much. But I don't know, man. I think, and I love Tony, but it made them stand out. It was a cool thing for them. Like, it was totally a signature for them. People still remember it as one of their things. So, nonetheless, Oracle, what did you make of this big heavyweight tag team contest?
Yeah, this match is good. I like, it's just like four big dudes, like, throwing haymakers, and finding a creative way to make a heel versus heel match interesting, as Alex kind of brought up. The Scott Hall's so good, man, too. Like as we've all mentioned, the early exchanges with him and Booker are really good. And there's an opening shot where Booker gets him with a kick, and Hall has this great expression, like, "Oh fuck," because they're mocking him in the pre-match. He's like, "Oh shit, we're in it," we're in it for this one. He has this great like reaction about it. The Stevie Ray spit spot, as of course, we mentioned that. I like that Stevie Ray gets the spit back at him later in the match.
Awesome.
Man, Booker, that Harlem. Let me tell you what, the Harlem Hangover, one of the all-time great finishers.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
No one made it look like him, right? Because like Sabu would do the tumble leg drop, Scorpio would do it, but like Booker, it made it look not dangerous because it was kind of graceful, but the way he would land made it seem like he was really killing you.
It was his frame, dude. He's so big.
Yeah. He would he would clock dudes with it, and Hall was definitely like, oh shit. The finish isn't great. Nash tried to use it a second time to try to make it a little bit more believable, but the finish is weak. But this match is super fun. Yeah.
And to that point, the other comp that with Hall and Booker is they're both guys that stood alongside taller folks for so long that people don't realize how big they are.
Oh, huge! All four of these guys in this match are massive.
Massive guys. Scott Hall.
Call that out about Booker. It's like he's one of those guys that I remember the joke with the wrestling fans was no one really appreciated.
Lower your mic, babe.
Oh, I'm sorry, man. Get stage direction over here. Anyway, Booker, that's one of my notes in here is that there was no real appreciation for how big of a dude he was. Edge and Christian are guys I always think of in that way, is people don't really appreciate how big those dudes are just because they were in a generation of fucking giants. When John Cena hosted SNL, that was the people realized how big of a dude he was just being around normal sized people.
Yes.
And Booker
absolutely
is huge, man.
He absolutely is. Hall would later talk, and it was kind of he was just kind of trying to explain it to Booker in a way that made him less mad, I think. But when Booker would get frustrated about the commentators always talking about the NWO when he was working, Scott Hall's spin that I actually think he did kind of believe was like, dude, your work's it speaks for itself. It's nice to look at, and he said it with such sincerity years later that I think he did believe what he was saying. Now, look, Booker still was mad for the right reasons because, God, can we not talk about the matches occasionally?
Yeah.
But I think there is truth to his work did pop visually. Certainly did. But I also want to quickly note this. This is not relevant to Booker necessarily, but I think it is relevant just as a kind of an era thing. Andrew says, in hindsight, it's surprising the outsiders have worked so much the tag division. Harlem Heat, Face Fear, Nasty, Steiners. They have a match with Mortis and that feels like something that would never happen today, And that I don't even mean it in an it used to be way. I just think it's something we take for granted of yes, the NWO is the big angle, but Hall and Nash just wrestled the roster too, didn't they? There wasn't a sort of exclusive club at first. When it becomes that, I think it's when they had a lot of problems actually in hindsight. But an interesting note I thought there. Now, before we move on, let's call out some other Harlem Heat matches. We should mention, and I saw this week, I found out that it has a 2-on cage match, the concession stand brawl.
Oh,
what has happened? What has happened to this country?
I think the second best match on that show.
Well, yeah, to be fair, that's... Yeah, but I think that's fun, man. I like that deal. That's fun. Sherry is incredible in that match also. Yep. So we got to call that out.
Worker in the match. Are we talking about the uncensored one?
Yeah. Tubular, yeah.
She's the best worker in the match.
She's the best worker in a lot of those matches.
She throws it in the... I think she does one here in this one too, but her working punch was better than anyone today, man. She hit one of the Blue Bloods with one, and she clocks Hall in this match. Fantastic.
She's so awesome. The Blue Bloods match, the other one, right? But do you know the date on that, Alex? It was a little bit earlier in the year, wasn't it?
It was on the main event. So those were before pay-per-views, right? That was their lead-in. the free for all or whatever.
Yeah, often was when it was pay-per-view week. Yeah, it would be. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's somewhere around that point in time. But yeah, the Nasties, and Joe, you called it out. I remember watching them, but I guess the popular opinion is all their best shit was with the Steiners.
So I watched the Vault, not the Vault. Sorry, I misspoke. The WCW channel is not a Vault. It's just the WCW channel because, of course, it's coming back soon.
Funny timing, right? They posted that right before we did this.
Yeah, they posted that Steiners tag, as well as the Bret match. They posted the Steiners tag from Full Brawl 97, and that match is fun. There is stuff in that range of, like, fun. There is also, and I'm not saying this to be an asshole, like, it's just, we're talking about that Booker's career, like, there are, like, some really bad Harlem Heat matches.
Oh, yeah.
But, on the contrary, have you considered that this is what they look like? I mean, what does it matter? I mean, what are we talking about here, right? I mean, I feel like we're losing the plot. So I'm not going to dwell on it too much. Some of the matches fucking suck. Some of those Nasty Boys matches, whew, territory may have been struggling, Alex, the one you were running with the old figure fed, bro. I don't know.
There were sellouts here in the north, the Midwest, but it is funny because like the Harlem Heat kind of did this, this little wiggle line, and then when they split up, they went like that in terms of like match quality.
Yeah. Any matches we want to call out for Harlem Heat? Because again, I don't have his extensive catalogue. Anything in particular? There's some very long ones. I know that.
Oracle, did they ever wrestle when Sting and Hawk were tagging together?
No, that was the Nasties that they had a.
Who did the Chicago Street fight?
Was it Sting and Booker that had the long match with the Nasties?
Sting and Booker, right?
Oh. No, yeah, was that okay? I don't know. I probably like the Nasty Boys way more than I should, generally speaking. But there was some combination that did like a Chicago Street fight that I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, it's the one that's like 30 minutes long, right? Booker is in that match. I'm almost certain of it.
Yeah.
Sting and Booker. The match I'm thinking of is Sting and Booker versus the Legion of Doom.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, Chicago Street fight.
Sting and Booker.
Yeah, half an
That's
hour.
what I'm thinking of. Yeah, that
match is 30 minutes long, dude.
Okay, yeah, never mind. Is that the one where they like are backstage and they knock over like a tower of cream onto Lex Luger?
Yeah, and Luger's working on his hair and he's like, oh no.
Yeah, and it falls on him and he's like covered in like shaving cream or something. He goes, "Look at me, Jimmy! Look at me!" That's it.
That's one thing I will say for Harlem Heat in their defense in terms of their like output. They were often incredibly mismanaged in the sense they would be sent out there to have like 20-minute epics. The tag division. It's weird. Bischoff
Booker's working 1830 of that 20, brother.
Yeah, right. But it's like it's straight. Bischoff's regime in WCW. I think there's a lot of damage done to the tag ranks. But on pay-per-view nights, he would still
the whole time.
He would still give those matches so much time. I guess it wasn't him, but someone, And it's like if Harlem Heat, if all of their matches lived in 10 to 12 that range, I think we'd have got more positive results, especially against the Nasty Boys. But again, look, guys.
Can you imagine if they had
what does it matter?
Oh yeah, no shit. Especially with those fucking belts, dude. Those WWE tag belts are fucking beautiful. But I'm now like in full pervert mode, thinking of, in '95, instead of Cactus Jack for the little talent trade they needed to do, Bischoff sent Harlem Heat to ECW to work like the Pitbulls and Raven and Stevie and the Public Enemy and like these fucking arena brawls. Oracle, that would have been some sick shit, don't you think?
Oh hell yeah, for sure. For sure.
Prime Paul E creatively having Harlem Heat would have been dangerous, man. Like he would have figured out how to maximize that act. I feel, especially if they had Sherry too. Like, good God.
Jesus.
And this is a good time. I've just circled a match here. Faces of Fear versus Harlem Heat. 4 minutes 29. I'm gonna have to delve into that one. Yeah.
Now we're talking.
We should, because we're going to move on here from Act 1, and Booker's going to obviously do all of the stuff he does as singles. I think it's important to kind of, while we've discussed Harlem Heat as a team and their legacy as a team, Sherry, man, what she did for that act, and I know both of them have spoken so glowingly about it, and, transformative, I think it's fair to say, and puts them over the top in terms of cool factor, right? It takes them somehow up another notch in that regard. Oracle, I don't know about you. When I think of Harlem Heat, I immediately see them with Sherry. Like, that's the way. Yeah.
I don't know, one of the coolest looks in wrestling. Like, just
So
fucking
awesome.
like, it just looks. I don't know. It's just like it's something that like epitomizes wrestling. You know, when they come out there and do their entrance and like
It's so different for Sherry too.
even stuff like I mean, obviously during the meat of the match, Stevie did nothing, but like even their finishers, they would do like the Heat Seeker, which was like,
Yeah.
I think that was the one where Stevie would pick up somebody in the spine buster position, and Booker would hit the top rope drop kick.
Mm-hmm.
And like,
Yeah.
I mean, they had a couple of double team finishers that were cool. I mean, like it just like, I don't know, man. They were cool.
The packaging, that's the thing, right? The
Yeah.
packaging of the act was money. Anything else on Sherry and her part in? Because we talk about whenever Sherry comes up, we try our best to kind of try to spotlight in that direction.
It is fascinating that like the acts we've talked about and her contributions to them. I think it's specifically like Randy Savage right now. Like Sensational Sherry and Sister Sherry, like they really are just in like visually and the way she acted, the way she performed. She's one of a kind, man. That Dark Side of the Ring on her was pretty weird. Like in terms of, it didn't seem like it was pretty cool to be her husband or her kid, but like as far as contributions as a performer to the wrestling industry, she might be on a level all her own. Just what she brought to, how she enhanced everyone she was with without making it about her. That seems to be such an issue with today. Prince Nana is fucking fantastic about that with Swerve Strickland. Of like he adds so much to that Swerve act, but doesn't steal the spotlight. So to speak.
It's still about Swerve. Yeah,
that's a gift. Yeah.
It is. It's a great point. And this is an interesting match to circle. Scott Hall and Six. Six, I'd imagine, had a lot of fun bouncing around and bumping for those guys. That sounds like a good time to look into that one also. Again, I'm sure the TV has some fun, like shorter stuff, especially. Just the pay-per-view matches were often a little bit of a slog, sadly. Okay. In the years that, follow the match we just covered, Booker begins to emerge as a single star, and it's very much an organic thing of the people just really getting with him. And we're about to see in this match, opener of Super Brawl. Indeed. He is over huge here at Super Brawl. This was one that, this whole kind of chapter, this isn't about Booker so much as this mini comeback that Rick Martel had and the way it ends is so unfortunate because he's so good in this spell. So I wanted to get a chance to say this was a good opportunity to do so.
What happened? What ended it?
So in this match, he blows his knee out.
Oh, no.
And there is lore, and I couldn't confirm this, and I don't fully buy it. I don't think it really makes sense. There is some lore that he changed the finish because he knew because the winner had to,
Booker, I'm gonna go up to the top rope.
Yeah, exactly. Again, I don't really buy that, but either way, he has this brief comeback, and he is incredible in this little run. And this match is a hell of a time. Opener of Super Bowl, February 22nd, 98. WCW television title hanging in the balance. A big night for Booker, I think, something that people remember. This actually came up on our Major Wrestling Figure podcast recently, Alex. Maybe this week they talked about this. Because he has a figure of this era, right, with the TV strap. Yeah. He pulls double duty, it's this, and then he has Perry Saturn. I really dig this match, and I really dig this weird chemistry these two guys have. Their match the month prior is good also. Alex, what did you remember this whole thing, and what did you make of the match?
This was when the WWE Network first launched. I remember just, God, we
didn't know.
We didn't know,
bro.
We had. But I remember just
memories alone
and watch it. But I remember just putting WCW shows on just to watch them. And I remember, in the course of a day, it went from Sold Out 98 to Super Brawl 98 and just being tickled pink that there was back-to-back pay-per-view matches between Rick Martel and Booker T. Famously, this both the 98 Super Brawl, Sold Out and Super Brawl arenas, playable venues in Revenge. That's we're already here, so I'll talk about Booker T was a regular to choose in Revenge, because if you couldn't tell by how over his offense is with the crowd, it's just all fucking smash mouth. Very video game offense without being like, moves with a Z. Booker T just had that really good. It was fun to play with him. And then if you flick down on the joystick for taunt, he would do the spin-a-rooney. It was great. But anyway, this is the beginning of 98, and he's already, and granted, the WCW crowds loved everybody, but he's already making this kind of connection. And, watching it in the confines of what we're doing here, it made me realize it's like, and no one thought to do anything with this guy until the fucking summer of 2000. Like, that's the first time. Like we said, 1, look at him. 2, his offense. And then here, the crowd, fucking San Francisco's raising the roof, man. And not just when his music hits, like on his offense and shit. And the finish, they react massive to Booker T winning this match when he cuts off Rick Martel with the Harlem sidekick. But yeah, there is a certain most absolute novelty of Rick Martel being a champion in pro wrestling in 1998. But physically, he looks great. And the thing I love about this is the crowd, it's that dawning of the new, like the boom period, so to speak. But when he locks that Boston Crab on, you can hear in the crowd like, oh, no, this might be it. Like the way people react to it is fantastic. And, of course, Rick Martel, to prove his worth at this point, the first thing he does is take a back body drop where his feet end up in the lights, man. He goes way the fuck up there for Booker T. Oh, yeah, I had my notes. Oh, poor Booker. Another fight in the crowd, but it turned out just to be Raven and the flock showing up that everyone was turning towards. Yeah, to your point, I mean, Rick Martel hits a beautiful spine buster at one point. Booker, the crowd reacts huge to that one he would become famous for, where it looks like he's going to go for a spine buster, but then just fucking like Alabama slams you forward. Crowd goes nuts for that. The Booker T flying forearm, based on the sound and the look of it, I think he clocked Rick Martel in the face pretty fucking hard. But yeah, it's just a fun match, a good pay-per-view opener. It's one of those matches you watch and you just go, yeah, that was WCW. It's Rick Martel versus Booker T to open up Super Brawl, and the crowd's going fucking nuts for it. Hell of a time.
Yeah, you mentioned the forearm. That's one. There's a few occasions where there's a look on Rick's face as if to say, I'm not sure I should have come back, actually. This is quite... there's a kick that he nails him with earlier. It's like, good. And the forearm is the best example. Rick kind of hits the mat and goes, that was there. He works heel in this match, and that allows Booker to even just be more over. It's a total crowd pleaser, and really just strong kind of heavyweight action again, to use that phrase, right? Like physical offense. And Martel, so versatile here in 98, kind of like adjusts his work accordingly to match what Booker's doing, I thought, which was really impressive as the veteran. Oracle, this is a fun little kind of forgotten chapter. What did you make of this match?
So I do want to point out that on the opener of NXT tonight, because Stephanie Vaquer defended both of her titles, and they brought up Booker on this show, and Booker brought up, wrestling Rick Martel and Perry Saturn in back-to-back matches.
Wow.
So the power of Grin Grappler.
There you go.
But yeah, this match is really good. This is better than their sold-out match. I recently watched their sold-out match. It's a classic WCW opener of just solid, like, technical wrestling with, like, big spots, but, like, in a very WCW way. And, like, the transitions are awesome. Like, every transition is like this, oh, fuck, spot. Like, that's the one thing about Booker is, like, he has, like, all these spots, like, whether it's Harlem Heat Tag or in his singles, especially in the WCW days, is he would, like, all of a sudden, there's an exchange or whatever going to the ropes, and he just wipes somebody out with a Harlem sidekick. And I can't tell you how many times I've just gone, oh shit, like sitting on my couch watching like an old Nitro, and like he fucking wallops somebody with it. But yeah, I mean, it's just this is like super fun to watch. The finish is awesome. That's another great thing about Booker is like this is a unique finish, maybe in part because as the lore states, maybe Martel had to call it early or whatever. But Booker had multiple finishers. He had,
Yeah.
Harlem Heat had multiple tag finishers, but Booker had multiple finishers himself. He won matches with a Harlem sidekick many times, top rope missile drop kick many times, Harlem hangover many times. Of course, later on in his WWE career, the bookend many times. He won some matches with his axe kick many times. I mean, he just had various finishers, and it really shows, particularly in the era of the late '90s WCW, how effective that can be. Because when he hits a Harlem sidekick and he goes for a cover, you believe he can win the match there.
Right. Yeah.
And he was very, that's things like that. When you have multiple finishers like that, you can buy him winning at any moment, and that was always cool. It made his cool moves even more impactful because you thought there was always a slight chance that it might be over too.
That was Gunther's thing for a while. Like he had a bunch of moves.
Yep.
Amos had that a little bit in the mid 2010s.
Of course, Triple H fucked that up, but
Yeah, true. Yeah. Now it's just a sleeper, basically, right? Well, sometimes it's the power bomb.
yeah.
He doesn't really wrestle anymore.
No, he doesn't.
He comes out and smiles and
none of the
skinny
champions
jeans.
wrestle, but
No one wrestles, dude. It's crazy.
Yeah, right. He'll be in
The
a
only-
six-pack challenge at WrestleMania.
The only wrestlers I see are Ludwig Kaiser and Penta.
Yeet.
Yeah. Yeah, before this European tour, he had wrestled 3 matches in 2025, Gunther. But nonetheless, that's another story for another day. He's made up for it since. He's wrestled 6 matches. So, anyway, I digress. Bobby O'Neill, what did you think of Rick Martel and Booker T, mate?
Yeah, I don't have a ton more to add. Orgle and Alex covered mostly all of it, but it was a fun match. It's nice to see Booker's kind of singles rise starting, and we talked about it a little bit. Like, it's nice to see too, just guys go out there and not try to have the match of the night on pay-per-view, just kind of do what they can, and it's a formula that works. It worked here. I have never seen the other I haven't seen a lot of Rick Martel matches, to be honest with you. And yeah, I mean, it got the job done. It's weird to see him in WCW in 1998 because pretty much like the only stuff I've seen is the Shawn stuff from 1993. So it's weird for him to just pop back up like that. But yeah, it worked, man. It was good, and I also watched the following match, and that was good too. Like, it wasn't as good, I don't think, but it was cool to kind of watch him go back to back like that.
Yeah, that match is fun with Saturn. I agree. Martel will be a good Grin Grappler one day, Oracle, dare I say.
He actually would be,
but,
honestly.
Yeah.
He absolutely should be. I mean, Portland and AWA and the Fed
And the model. Yeah.
WCW and, all kinds of.
Mm-hmm. Be pretty
stuff.
cool.
Montreal, yeah.
Oh,
I
there
believe
you
he was
go.
in Montreal and had some good stuff there too.
Weird one here where our next match is on the exact same. It's on February 22nd also, which is pretty sick. 1 year later, February 22nd, we're on Monday Nitro. Number 1 contenders match. Booker T is opposite Bret the Hitman Hart. This is a famous pairing, would be too strong. But this is kind of notable because Booker is like one of the 3 people in WCW that Bret liked. And Bret's thing is always, I could have had an incredible program with Booker, but like they were dumb, But this is the lead evidence. He has a few matches with Booker, but this is the one that most people look to as evidence of like they clearly could have had something special if they'd have done.
Who did Bret like in WCW? Booker, Sting, and who was the
Sting. It may have been 2. Ray. He liked Ray. I don't know if he worked with Ray, but he liked Ray. Ray thought Ray was great. So I think that's the big 3. Yeah. Put me huge in his book when he just like dedicates 2 paragraphs to him about how Dean Malenko sucked. Very funny. Yeah. What a legend.
Malenko's one of the most overrated wrestlers ever. Anyways.
There you go. So February 22nd, 1999, WCW Monday Night
Perfect place to
Show.
come back in, I tell you what.
Booker T, Bret Hart, number 1 contenders match. This is a really good match. This gets a lot of time too for considering all that's going on.
Dude, Dave gave it 4 stars, which all jokes aside would legitimately mean it would get 5 stars by today's standards.
Yeah. It does have a hint of house show Bret early.
Oh, I thought you were going to cut to Bob cutting a promo in the group chat yesterday about the fuck is this Disco Inferno shit?
I'm saving that high spot for Bob. He can do that with it, but it's long enough that you see Bret like change modes in the middle of it. Because the first half he is kind of in house show Bret mode, where he's just sort of strolling through the match, and he gets more and more into it. And by the end, it's actually really singing. It's really starting to climb. I like this match. It's a good wrestling match. Bobby, I'll go straight to you so you can do the disco thing. Go for it.
Yeah, I think this match rules too. I've seen enough of Bret in WCW to realize this is probably one of the high watermarks. Yeah, just a good time. And then just right when you're kind of getting into it, though, they cut to the back in the middle of the match so we can see Disco Inferno going into the production truck to harass people for like 4 minutes. And just feels like you could have done that at any other point on your 3-hour program instead of when Bret Hart.
Hey, listen, man. I mean, the ratings, man.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm just doing what's making money.
I just can't shake the idea of like Bret getting back home and putting the tape in for Nitro because he's happy with his match for the first time in a year, and just being so mad when Disco appears on screen.
Hey, it's a TV show. Live crowd getting Book and Nash out there. I mean, we got to give them some at home. Fuck.
No, a hell of a match though. Probably my favorite of the 6 that we watched. I'd seen this a couple times before, but yeah, I mean, Bret by the end kind of looks like Bret. It's good stuff.
He does. If you squint, it's like, oh, it's Bret Hart. I really like the tactical, like, feeling out process. Booker's a big boxing fan, and like sometimes he tries to bring it in his wrestling, and sometimes it's kind of boring, to be honest. But in this, it pops me the way they're like, at range, trying to get a grip on each other's distance. It's good stuff. And they have this really cool kind of seesaw rhythm of like, Booker is the younger, fresher guy, so he has these bursts of offense, and then Bret will slam down, right? Bret's trying to contain Booker, who's so explosive and dynamic. Good match, Oracle. What did you think of it?
Yeah, this is very good. This gets a lot of time, which is is super cool. It's very much a Bret-led match. Bret wants to, he's very deliberate pace, obviously. Very different rhythm from what the Booker match we're kind of used to. Very much lets sort of Booker's comebacks and stuff breathe and be meaningful, and that final stretch in Booker's win feels so earned by the end. Booker's never been someone who is like what I would call like, man, this guy can sell, and he's not even like terribly good at it here, but it always makes you wonder if like he worked with more people like Bret, if he could have added that to his repertoire a little bit more, because working with guys like like Bret would, I think, have certainly helped him sort of kind of add more to the sort of cerebral side of wrestling in terms of in-ring psychology, as the nerds would say, as we nerds would say. Yeah, I mean, this is one of the more unique, really good Booker matches because it's not a match we see from him much.
Yeah.
It's not as hard hitting or as explosive. It's a lot more deliberate, but it's a style that I kind of wish to have seen him work more. Because I think he shows signs that he could actually do this more often. Sort of title match feel, right? And I think it's unfortunate that we never got to see him wrestle the right guys. Like, he wrestled enough times with Triple H, but I mean, fuck that, obviously. But like, I mean,
I was about to say, interesting choice to follow up the phrase "right guys."
Right.
He's right, all right.
What we do.
What we do, yeah. Yeah, this is an excellent match for sure.
I do like an awful lot. Alex, what do you think? This has got to be one of the best Bret matches in WCW, right? What did you make of it?
Definitely. And I'm going to be honest with you. This isn't the one I thought of. I thought of their Bash of the Beach match, which is fine. But yeah, this is really good. And you can tell that Bret, even if it takes him a little while to get into gear, get the the wheels greased. You can tell Bret cared about Booker T because he gave him
Yes.
the SummerSlam 92 finish, which if you've read Bret's book that has fucking 300 pages dedicated to that Davy Boy match in Wembley, then you know how important that is to him and how important that finish is to him. And he gave that to Booker here. So that's no small deal. You know what I mean? Scrolling through the episode of Nitro to get there, when I turned it on, it was like, later tonight, our main event, Goldberg against Scott Steiner. I was like, well, hold on. You know, might be doing the wrong episode here. There's no way. You guys are too young, but maybe someone in the chat. I forgot they had Ricky Rackman host the Nitro parties. Ricky Rackman was the host of MTV's Headbangers Ball, which was like the metal show in the late 80s and early 90s. So it's very tickling to me that WCW had him on retainer there for a period of time. The biggest thing about this match from like an internet perspective is this is the match that Bret meme / GIF is from, where he's like leaning over the ropes, very bored and despondent, you know, stroking the would-be Fu Manchu. Very solid back and forth. We're here to talk about Booker T, and I don't mean to have any hot takes here on this episode, but man, Bret Hart in the beginning of this match is giving us like a 25% Bret Hart show, and it's like, God, look how fucking good he is. Talking about good European uppercuts earlier too, man. Bret's was fucking beautiful. But, and like you said, it's almost like you can see Bret being reminded that he loves doing this throughout the course of this match. And for Booker, he knows that it's a huge opportunity for him. And there's points where he seems a little bit overexcited, might be, you know, overextending or kind of like jumping the gun on a few things. But by the end, when they're just fucking clicking, man, this match is fantastic. And I hate to rely on that thing, but when I read that Meltzer gave that 4 stars in 99, 1999 for American television wrestling is not a good year. And so you'd have to think this ranks amongst the better matches that were on TV in that year. And, man, the superplex in this match is something I want to call out from the WCW direction because they have it. They start it. And the guy who was always in the corner that had the little podium that he stood on. And so the camera's like up like this, like shooting it set up. And right as Bret leaves, they cut to the hard cam. So it looks like Booker and he like literally fly through the air before they hit the WCW mat, which can we also take a moment to appreciate the noise the WCW mat made? Just a beautiful, beautiful piece of business. And in true WCW fashion, the crowd reaches a near fever pitch during the figure 4 spot. Bret puts a figure 4 on Booker, and they do the thing where Booker's trying to turn it over. Never quite understood how that worked. Always associated that spot with WCW matches. It turned it into a modified Indian Deathlock, you know, thinking of JR way back in the early 90s. The crowd's just going absolute ape shit for it. You know, this... I assume when he was taking his boots off backstage, this was probably Booker was thinking, I just had the best match of my career, you know, at least up until this point.
Yeah, I would agree. Very, very good match. And to your point, 99, like the only WCW match better than this on TV is probably the Sting and DDP match we did, right?
Yep.
For the strap, yeah. Mm-hmm. So definitely up there. It's just rare you got this much time, and like you see Bret relish that opportunity as it gets deeper into it, as we mentioned. So it's maybe this was salvageable, guys. Maybe Bret could have been good in WCW. He just was given the chance to have long matches against good wrestlers. Maybe.
Dude,
new evidence is emerging.
I think we kind of broached this subject on the Jarrett episode. If Bret and Jarrett were given a real pay-per-view main event where they got like 30 minutes, I'm telling you that could have been fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a... You know, we're going to go a little off the rails, but it's Grin Grappler. That's what we do. That's what we do.
What we do.
What Bret really should have offered WCW was a guy who could bridge the gap for a Booker, for a Jericho, for a, you know... because those guys were never going to work with Hogan, right? But like Bret could be a top guy that actually brought those guys up, and then you have a new crop of top stars, and
dude,
that was what he could have done, man.
It bugs me so much we didn't get a TV Raven Bret match. Like just thinking of like the one-offs, because that's Bret's whole fucking identity in the WWF was he was the guy that wrestled anybody.
Yeah,
he wrestled. His title defenses were going like Virgil and Berserker and shit like that, and Hakushi, and you know. And in WCW, we're getting off the rails, but exactly the point. He could have been there to have these like solid TV matches, but then also help elevate certain guys in the fans'
Yes.
minds. You know?
And that's why I liked Andrew's point earlier about how much Hall and Nash just worked the roster. It's noticeably different by the time that like Bret gets in the roster because you can feel the culture's changed, right? It's like the Millionaires Club thing. It's used the in fear of quoting Vince Russo. Yeah, so let's kind of map out. Obviously, we've got a big jump to our next match in terms of all that happens. So we need to kind of do the middle ground there. Before we do, Bob, any tips for people that are enjoying the show so far?
Yeah, you go ahead and smash that like button. If you did it the first time, this will be your second time, so you're going to have to do one more. If you weren't here the first time, that's still an odd number for you, so go for it.
So, just the way you phrased, you're going to have to do it one more. Like, it's just wonderful. Okay, so
he wrestles Steven Richards in a best of 7 series in WCW.
look.
Nice callback.
I was gonna get to it. It just but before we do that, let's kind of go from this point forward. So he's emerging as singles, and he's very, very popular. His usage, if fair to say, is up and down. Right? He does like some really goofy shit, and then other times he's featured against Bret Hart because it's WCW, and then Bash at the Beach happens. Now, look, there are many topics I'm happy to discuss in this program. I don't know if we can add much to Bash at the Beach 2000, to be honest with you.
I hate to be a broken record about some of these things, but anything you ever would want to know about that Bash at the Beach situation, the Lapse fan has you covered.
Yes. Yeah. And I listened to that whole thing front to back, and I still left it with some confusion because it's just one of the most bizarre incidents. It's one of those ones where the deeper you get, the less interesting it gets, to be honest. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you know what?
Yeah, it's so weird because there's no stakes. It's mid-2000s WCW. Like, you talk about Montreal, and then even, especially now, because we know, like, that's what launched the WWF to take over and stuff. So it's like, oh, yeah, it makes sense that there's all this shit involved with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who fucking cares? I'll tell you who. Hulk Hogan, because he had brother. It's, I don't know, dude. But, yeah, I agree. I wanted to call it real quick, too. If you go back to, what's the Super Brawl 2000? Is that it? Anyway, Booker T, for some reason, gets in a feud where they, like, take away the T and his entrance music with Stevie Ray and Ahmed Johnson. For some reason, at either Sold Out 2000 or Super Bowl 2000, Booker T wrestles in the red suit that Eddie Murphy wore in the Delirious special. Like, it's not drawn attention to, but it's like he's wearing the suit that Eddie Murphy wore in Delirious. Why is this going on right now?
As I said, usage up and down. And eventually Bash the Beach comes and he leaves it as world champion. Now, unfortunately, he gets his shot on top of a promotion that is in legitimately such poor health that the phrase WCW 2000 has its own, like, prestige.
Yep.
To the point where something bad will happen and someone will go, oh man, this is some WCW 2000 stuff. And everyone who's seen WCW 2000 goes, no, it's not.
Yeah.
Don't say those words. Don't say those words. And unfortunately, Booker is the top babyface. Because of the way the title is used, by the end of WCW, he's a 5-time champion because it's just chaos. WCW does kind of, ironically, I think it does steady the ship in terms of the quality of the shows in the last couple months. But by that point, the ship has sailed.
Who was booking when it was right before it ended? Because, it does kind of turn around there in 2001.
It's,
oh, fuck, I forgot.
It's actually, the lead writer is actually Ed Ferraro because he stays after Russo goes home. Sucks. And the other guy we'd have to credit is Johnny Ace, so we should just move on. So anyway.
We'll just credit most of the talent instead.
Yeah, right. Jimmy Hart.
Yeah. Your 20-minute finish on this one.
Just pretend it was Jimmy Hart.
Yeah, baby.
So, I say all this to say that Booker's first go-round as a true top guy could not have come at a worse time. And unfortunately, he had very little opportunity to create anything of worth. Some of the Jeff Jarrett matches are like tidy and decent. Like, the Bash match is fine. But really, sadly, none of Booker's stuff as the world champion
That
guy.
Lance Storm match that's in like every DVD.
Yes. Because it's like the one match that's kind of fun from that year, right? It's like 6 minutes. Yeah, it's. I'll say this as someone that's watched WCW 2000, like, when Booker comes out, you're generally relieved because his matches won't be terrible. But there is no intent from the promotion having anyone have good matches. It's not allowed. So you can't get a lot there. Now, Alex, you mentioned, Andrew just brings the chat, you mentioned earlier, one of the things that Booker struggles with at this time is that Russo makes him into The Rock, which is something that I think he would actually struggle to shake slightly when the jump is made. So talk about that quickly.
Yeah, like I said, I was watching WCW 2000 when I was 13, and much to my shame, I've said this before. I thought, as a kid watching that, I thought Vampiro was going to help them, take back over. Like, I was like, all right, this Vampiro guy's here now.
But he thought the same thing. He did. He thought the same thing. He was convinced of it.
I'm sure I doubt he can remember it now, but, anyway. Poor Ian. Anyway, Booker T. I liked Booker T. I always did. And I remember during this time as a youngin' watching it and thinking, why is he not what I liked? Why is he like, because we're not like making this up. Like, Russo had him come up with like a catchphrase, like if you smell, that he could end every promo on. And then his entrance theme then started with, what was it? Don't hate the player, hate the game.
Yeah.
Like, don't hate the player, hate the game. And then the song would start, just like fucking The Rock. And then he started wearing like those silk button-up shirts with the long sleeves and stuff. And it's just like, dude, I don't believe this. Because I am not qualified to like talk on this, but I remember Nash one time saying of when they were fucking with the Booker T formula in 2000, he was like, Book was like the first black guy that was a black guy in wrestling, and they tried to just mess this up. And what I'm trying to establish with that is the Booker T thing fucking was cool to me to begin with. And I don't need another Rock. I can just watch the WWF if I want to rock. It's like, why try to mess with that formula? And the other part too was like his matches were so cool. He did like the fucking Harlem Hangover and the fucking Harlem Sidekick, and so it just seemed like this completely unnecessary cosmetic lift that even as a 13-year-old kid was so transparent to me. It's like they just want this guy to be the Rock, and that's not what he's here to do. And to your point, Joe is exactly right. Of when he came in. He did shake that by the end of WCW when he like became his own guy again and ended the company. He had the kind of new look with the dreads and stuff, and but by the time he got to the WWF, bit of unfortunate bumpy roads to start there, where the Rock's just like, you're just a Rock wannabe, and it was like, well, it's kind of hard to say that's
yeah. Your impression was incredibly funny as always, but this actually made it funnier. That like you framed it in the exact way that Kev would want you to frame it. I always love when they ask Nash about the NWO and he immediately just goes, Park, Biggie, and it cuts to him like with
the backwards bandana and shit. Yeah. I mean, I knew it was cool. I tried to tell Vince, but he wouldn't hear it. To Vince, the baby face is still, red, white, blue, blonde hair.
Okay, we're gonna do other matches now, and this is where the best of 7 series of Chris Benoit was transformative for Booker T.
Yeah,
it changed the way he was perceived as a singles wrestler. It changed the way he performed as a singles wrestler. It made him a better pro wrestler. He has said so many, many times over. He has said that's his finest work, his best feud, his greatest rival, and he's even gone as far to say that Benoit was the best wrestler he ever wrestled. Obviously, you can't talk about Booker's career without mentioning it, right? I mean, it's just a huge part of his career. We don't do the Benoit matches as like a spotlighted segment on the show because I don't know, man. It feels weird, like for that purpose. You know what I'm saying? It's just you can do other things. We did Rick Martel instead, but I do think it would be silly for us to just completely ignore it. So, anything you guys would like to say about the best of seven, the WCW best of seven in particular, because the WWE best of seven is good, but it isn't a big part of his story.
Booker gets hurt at the end of it, so he don't even wrestle as Randy, who wrestles the last few matches for him. Remember?
There you go. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I forgot about that. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
you go for it, Alex. Cool.
they're great. It wouldn't be fun to do a full Benny match, and that's kind of why we.
Yeah.
And it's also, fortunately for us, and fortunately for Joe, so I don't get him kicked off this platform. We don't come across too many people where we have to talk about Benoit, but in this case, it's true. And it would be unfair not doing justice to Booker T's run if we didn't acknowledge like the series that he had with him, because it was fantastic. And God, those German suplexes they would rip off, and the aforementioned sound that WCW ring would make. It was good stuff, and like you said, transformative is the word to use, because I don't know. Who knows if he would have gotten the confidence to really stand on his own and believe in himself as a singles wrestler had it not been for that series of matches.
He got hurt right after that feud too.
He said he loved the physicality so much. And he said there was one match they had where he like challenged Benoit on a chop count. He said he got chopped 31 times. So if you subtract like wrestler math, he probably got chopped around 19 times in that match. He said he was in such agony, but he loved it. He really enjoyed the challenge.
He also
and
had
I think
sold out. 92,000 people was there.
Yeah, right. And this is relevant for the angle match we're about to about. And I also think it's relevant for what you mentioned about the Bret match. There's an enthusiasm to Booker in WCW that is not there later, even though I like a lot of the stuff he does later. But like, there's he's so excited to have this opportunity, right? And I think the Benoit match is how much he relished that. Because lest we forget, Benoit's wrestling those matches with this rich, catalog of singles exploits, right, across the world. Booker's not that old. Booker's a tag team wrestler. And Booker honestly loved that. It's interesting.
I was just to add on to your point, like, there were plenty of people that at the time that happened thought Benoit was the best wrestler in the world, and that so Booker obviously took all that into consideration. And you're right about the enthusiasm too. Like I don't know if anyone else had anything left to say. I was going to kind of segue that to some of his other WCW.
That's studying that covers it. Go for it.
Well, I was just going to say, even the match where he beats Jarrett for the title at Bash of the Beach 2000, like his energy in that match is infectious. Yes. And similarly, him and Sting, it was one I was kind of pulling for on this, but it's only like 6 minutes, so it's not really worthy of the full treatment. But like, it's Spring Stampede 2000 when they do like the one night tournament for the WCW title. Him and Sting have like this fucking just 6 minute banger where Sting, is still Sting. But that is until the death of WCW. Every time Sting came out, people were still like, "Oh shit, there's a fucking star." But Booker wrestles that match like he still thinks like this company can like exist and flourish. And the last Nitro, when he wrestled Scott Steiner, he wrestles in a similar fashion. That match is nothing really special. It's not really good at all, but like, because Steiner's just like, getting paid either way. So, but Booker wrestles like this might be the last match of my career, so I need to do something with this. And so yeah,
he does. Yeah,
he believed in WCW.
Yes,
in a way, we're so accustomed and just kind of numb now to people believing in their wrestling promotion. GCW for life, or AEW. Like, people just try to they make it part of their personality now, as opposed to you watch not comparing Booker T to Will Ospreay necessarily, but Will Ospreay is going to kill himself because he believes in that company so much. He's going to break his back or do something stupid like that. But Booker T wrestled in a way with WCW that you could tell he believed very much in the promotion, wanted things to flourish. And he didn't have to go out and say it. His performance spoke for it.
Yeah, and that was exactly where I was going to go. Like, when you watch that Who Killed WCW thing, it becomes apparent that all these years later, all the money he's made, all the things he's done, he still has those memories. And you can tell he believed in it. That's exactly it. You feel it. And it's a really complicated thing in the sense that I think to your point at this, in 2025, I think we've all had enough of like pro company rhetoric from anyone. I don't really want to hear it from anyone, which is not really fair, but it's just the way it's
At this point,
overcorrected
it's just
now.
what we
Right?
do.
Yeah, exactly. But I do think in that overcorrection, we do lose sight of the fact that, quite frankly, WCW would have been a much better promotion if more people had that enthusiasm, right? I mean, it gets really bad there at the end, man. It's guys walking out with complete disinterest and complacency. So it's a complicated thing. It's a fine line. I think Booker, with the decision he made afterwards, kind of that gives you some insight into his mindset. And like, yeah, he loved money, but he was driven to be great, right? Which is why he makes the decision he does.
And he's the only guy it worked out for.
Exactly right, yeah. And before we get to that, any other matches to call out from Booker as a singles in WCW? Obviously, we talked about Benoit, Jarrett, the Sting match mentioned there. Anything else we'd like to circle before we proceed here?
Isn't there a Finley match from Great American Bash '98?
I like the Finley stuff because the Finley stuff comes out of the Benoit stuff, right?
Yeah,
Doesn't it?
that's good.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then Booker gets a shitty injury like in the summer, and then he has to.
Yeah.
He doesn't
That
come
halts
back
his
till
momentum.
shortly before the Bret match. I don't think like a month or two before the Bret match.
Yeah. Okay. There we go. It would have been interesting, if you could just like simulate or change things like in the timeline. Booker as a top guy having existed in any other version of WCW would be an interesting to look at what he would have produced because we never know, right? I don't know.
It's also like you think about the way, the alleged way the plan was laid out. If Hulk Hogan wasn't such a motherfucker, the idea of like Hogan wins the belt, but then Booker T comes back to beat Hulk Hogan, like in a true passing of the torch moment. Like, I'm not saying that necessarily could have turned the fortunes around for WCW, but it's really interesting to ponder what could have been if that happened.
Right. Mm-hmm. I guess my thing is like I wish we had a more definitive answer as to whether or not Booker could have been the guy, right? I think is the point of this, what we're talking about right now. It's like this is the only part of Booker's career where he's the guy for like a minute, and it's the worst time to ever be the guy for any promotion ever.
And they immediately change him, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They switched the belts so many times. It's like I just wish we knew, and if we did know and it was not the case, then I wouldn't think less of him. That role was not for everyone. But I feel like he had a lot of the ingredients, and it was a shame that he didn't get a chance to kind of show that. But nonetheless, Bob, how familiar are you with the actual like logistics of what he did with his contract? Because what was the money? Do you know the numbers or like anything roughly?
No, I know it was like it wasn't 50 cents on the dollar. I know that it was way lower than that. It was closer to. Because I mean, there's a reason so many guys didn't take it. It wasn't like 10%, but it was somewhere. It was low, like it was below 50. So like,
yeah, because his deal was it was a 1.5 million or so. Yeah. He was doing WCW. Yeah.
If I understood correctly, DDP's drop was more dramatic than Booker's, but it wasn't too far off.
That makes sense.
Interesting. Okay. And it's funny because he, in DDP's case, he's always said he wanted to do that run, didn't he? I mean, as much as DDP loved WCW and he was a WCW guy, he was intrigued by, can I have a run in the WWF before I call it a day? Booker, by contrast, has often said, like, if WCW lives, he's just going to work there for the rest of his life. That's what he's going to do. He's going to be in WCW. Yet he makes this decision because he knows it's, he has to chase this. He has momentum. This is his chance to make an impact. And he believes in himself. I'm going to go and get over with that audience. And he does. It is a much more complicated journey, however, than I think their history books will tell you, as is often the case. He arrives at King of the Ring, and we meet him very early in that journey here. July 26th, 2001 edition of SmackDown. This was taped 2 days prior. Is Booker T, is Kurt Angle, is the big gold hanging in the balance. A red-hot crowd here rooting Kurt Angle to WCW glory. You kind of see, I mean, it's not a one-to-one comparison, but like some of the qualities that made Benoit a great opponent for Booker are there in Kurt right here. This version of Kurt where he's just like go, 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 go. Very energetic TV main event here. Very, very fun match. Bobby, what did you make of this, mate?
Yeah, I thought it ruled. I believe it was in Pittsburgh, so that was why the crowd was so hot for Kurt, which makes sense.
Right.
Yeah, we get some crowd brawling. I like when everyone kind of comes out at the end. We get the brawl there, even though it gets a little convoluted because Earl can't control anything like always, but like, the Booker and Kurt parts of this match are really good stuff. It's a good TV main event. And then I like the finish a lot too, because Kurt finally gets the ankle lock in, and he tried 3 or 4 times, always got broken up by someone, and then it looks like Booker can finally, put him to bed, and then Kurt just rolls through and gets the ankle lock. So I liked it a lot for what they were going for.
I did too. It's very of its time in the way the match is laid out, and like obviously there's some moving pieces and such, and it also has that pace of an early Kurt match where it feels like he's racing against the clock.
Yes.
How much stuff can I possibly get in this 10-minute match? But it is a good one. Alex, what did you think of this?
Yeah, you're. Sorry if I see the UNT games coming down to the wire over here. You're exactly right. My main takeaway was the fucking pace. It's just like this guy's a fucking like monster, man. And we've talked about Kurt in some of the matches we've done, and at the point where he does the moonsault, Booker's almost like, what the fuck is he doing? Like trying to get out of the way of it.
Yeah.
It's I said this earlier when Booker came out, when he showed up at King of the Ring 01, that felt like I don't give a fuck about Lance Storm or Stacy Keibler. Or when Mike Awesome showed up, I was like, he's an ECW guy. Who fucking cares? But when Booker T showed up at that pay-per-view and laid out Stone Cold Steve Austin, I was like, all right, this is real. And I wasn't on the sheets or anything at that point. I was 13 or 14. And so, like, now I'm assuming, like, all right, Scott Steiner's going to show up and fucking Hulk Hogan and all this. Obviously, that didn't happen, but that's kind of where my brain was going. But you can tell with the way the invasion played out that the Booker T thing still came with a bit of weight that the other guys didn't, that fans like understood he was from this other side. And they didn't fucking kill that idea immediately like they did with DDP. DDP mattered for fucking 15 minutes on TV and then it was dead. So yeah, Booker still like posed a threat to some of these guys. The thing with The Rock, some people think that hurt him, but here you can tell the crowd still like believes he's a threat to Kurt Angle and the way the match plays out and everything. And there's also the invasion thing is kind of weird because in January of 2002, someone came back that I don't mean to say kind of killed morale for the next several years, but something kind of happened. But during that early invasion period, these guys were still wrestling to prove a point, to steal the show, even if it was like Tajiri or RVD or Spike Dudley. And then when Booker T got these chances, he would really like go above and beyond, even on a fucking 10-minute TV match like this, to really try to deliver and, stake his place on the card. And so like I really sometimes going back and rewatching some of these matches from the invasion era, I find a new appreciation for, because yeah, it's the angle that killed the business for 20 years, but there's some really good matches that came from it.
Right, which is always a good thing to actually remind yourself of, that those two things aren't mutually exclusive, right? They can actually both happen, yeah. I think people forget that sometimes. But you mentioned the moonsault, dude. Kurt doesn't even like register or telegraph. I'm going to do it. Just climbs up. Yep.
The first one he did in the cage against what's his name. That's exactly what he did. He just climbed up there and fucking jumped. Fucking psycho, man.
Yeah, he's bonkers here. I will say Booker was always physical. He's got main event pop in this one, brother. He's putting Kurt in his place a few times. He's clobbering, like, feels like a real heavyweight here. So really carrying himself like a main event guy. So that's one thing. For all we said about 2000 WCW, it probably gave him some confidence in that regard, right?
I was about to say also in the 2-year gap between this and our previous matches, he's also put on some LBs, man. He's main event shape there.
Yeah, he gets to be. I mean, again, he's a guy I think deceptively, but when we get to the end of his WWE run, he's like huge, man. His shoulders and
When he showed up in TNA wrestling those guys, man, it was like, oh, that's a WWE wrestler right there.
Yeah, we'll get there. One of many challenges for Booker in TNA, but Oracle, a hell of a TV match here. What did you make of this?
Yeah, they just work a really frenetic pace, and Booker gets drilled with a German and like lands right on his head. Like it's like a release German too or something. And of course the Kurt moonsault was just, it's just insane. There's a lot of like early 2000s bullshit going on.
Yes.
That kind of it adds to the match, but then it goes on a little bit too long.
Dilutes it a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. This match is fun. They have a couple of other matches during the Alliance period that I'd be interested to watch. Their actual feud is very unfortunate and very problematic.
Yes.
Occurs in 2005. And the matches are... There's one TV match that's decent, but the matches themselves are not very good. It's very offensive. It would have been interesting if they actually gave them a program around this period, 0102.
Yeah.
Because I think there was some chemistry there that was kind of untapped. But yeah, this is a very fun match.
It is indeed. Booker's, he's big, like, leaping, his high kick, the one that Juice Robinson has been an expert of in recent years, the Juice Robinson kick as we know it in the industry now. Kurt Angle sprints towards this kick, like, can't wait to just get kicked in the face by Booker T. Just unhinged force of nature here, it has to be said. I also pop for the stunner in this, like, because it's a tight angle. So you can see Steve, like, doing the maths in his head of where he has to do this stunner, right? He kind of changes it to ensure that no one dies. Yeah, it's fun. This like era of TV is not really my thing, but these guys, I agree with Oracle completely. There's a chemistry. These two clearly had like a great wrestling match beyond all of the, the sort of frantic urgency and such.
These two were tearing it down on house show matches, man.
Have to have been, right? Yeah. Yeah, Booker's an interesting... I'd actually be intrigued with some WWE Vault stuff, because if you hear Booker talk about house shows, he's one of those guys who does the, like, wouldn't even speak to a guy. Just see them out there and would feel it out. And when he says it, he thinks I'm imagining this sort of classic, and sometimes I'm imagining, man, I bet that took a really long time to get going. Booker just circling at range, feeling it out on a house show.
Oh, Greg Valentine. I'll see you out there.
Yeah. So let's kind of track. We have a huge leap between matches, so we need to kind of... A lot of things happen in Booker's career. Yeah. Okay, when is the Austin segment, the grocery deal?
December of 01.
December of 01.
Okay, so before we get there...
Because...
The Rock match. Go on, Alex, go for it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, because Booker costs Austin the main event where Jericho becomes the first undisputed heavyweight champion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's coming out of Survivor Series, and the Alliance will win, all that stuff.
All
right?
that stuff.
Yeah.
That's in particular.
Okay. So
the Rock feud.
He leaves the Alliance versus WWE feud with some business that then he launches with Austin coming out of Vengeance, okay? Mm-hmm. And they have that segment. Now, if it was worth dedicating some time to this, did you guys see this segment in real time? The grocery store
segment?
Segment?
I remember watching it with my parents in my parents' bedroom at the house I lived in at the time. Yeah.
Now, I assume you loved it, right? Because it's hilarious. It's a great segment.
Yes.
If I'd have told young Oracle then that this segment would sustain to such a degree that it would have like action figure sets, and it would be when they do like Booker documentaries, it's like, okay, now it's 20 minutes for the grocery store brawl with Steve Austin. Like, it's awesome. It really fascinates me how certain parts of history, like they've kind of get this new life, And again, let me be clear, this isn't a case of like DX invading Nitro, which isn't even really very fun. This is really fun. This is awesome. But it is wild how much of a thing this is, Oracle. You get what I'm saying? It's like the Booker T thing now in WWE canon.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. Like, I mean, I remember watching as it aired, and like it's funny because there's two segments that I remember during that period, that very month. It's that one from SmackDown, and then there's the Kiss My Ass Club of someone that I won't, but Rikishi comes back, and there's actually a great payoff in that segment.
That is funny.
It's the one that involves The Rock and Trish and all that. But those two segments are the ones that I remember like watching live in that month of. I have very good memory, so I mean, but got to put myself over like Booker used to do on the pre-shows,
Yeah.
but yeah, just a hilarious segment. One of the all-time great like comedy skits they ever did. It's not a match. It's just like
No.
Austin chasing Booker around town.
Yeah, it is awesome. It's incredible.
Because Oracle wasn't. It's like a series of vignettes through the course of one episode of SmackDown, and the culmination is the grocery store, right?
Yeah, yep.
Because I always thought the funniest part was not. It never gets remembered in all of it. Is when Booker's at the nursing home playing bingo with the elders, and he's like there with his bingo card, and he's like, "Brother, looking around."
That's the funny, but no one remembers that part.
And so like they're reading numbers, and some geriatrics like B7, and then you hear Steve Austin get the microphone and goes, "Next number is 316," and then they have all these seniors go, "What?" And then Booker's like, "Oh shit!" He's got to get up.
It's just
Booker's comedy skits were incredible. That really helped him get over, especially with the Fed crowd because the Attitude Era stuff and I do want to mention I like the SummerSlam 01 match with The Rock a good bit. I think it's super fun. Yeah, like Booker just like, and then we get to the Goldust stuff and like the skits with Goldust are like there's
Right.
like it's some of that stuff is like laugh out loud funny even still now today. Like
Burned into my brain the line, "It don't matter if you a stormtrooper or the NWO."
Of course, he does have the period where he's in the NWO and he gets kicked out by Shawn Michaels.
Oh, we'll get there. Yeah, we'll do. But to your point, the comedy. Booker comes in as a top guy because he's WCW's the lead representative, but he sort of has to like be broken down and then rebuilt because of course he does, because they have to do everything with everyone, and he emerges as like a comedic figure. But such is the power of Booker T and the range of Booker T, he does get over with the audience in that way, right? I mean, he changes a lot in this time.
So many Vince lines during that era fed to commentary of. He's a former WCW, JR trying to maintain some dignity, and then Jerry Lawler. Yeah, wasn't David Arquette the champion there? Just trying to completely diminish all of his accomplishments before getting there.
Right. It's that thing of Vince only gets into it when it's his thing, right? Yeah. And I think with King Booker, you really see an example of that. But even before then, he has to keep breaking down and rebuild. So when is the NWO? I wanted to ask you guys about this. This is what I was wondering. So when does he join the NWO? That weird thing.
Like May 2002, probably May or June.
And then does that launch his team with Goldust, or is okay?
Pretty much
in that area, right? So I say this: look, the Goldust team is awesome, and Oracle's spot on. They are very funny together, and they're two guys who are great at those wrestling skits, right?
Great matches, though.
If you'd have told like a WCW diehard when Booker showed up at King of the Ring, like here's where he'll be in a year, and it's like him and Goldust doing skits, but that's what they had to do, right? Like that's just the way they work. We're gonna have to restart.
But imagine if in 1998 or 9, Joe had told you we're gonna make a tag team with the Natural Dustin Rhodes and Booker T.
Oh,
here.
Well, yeah, that's a very different thing. So Goldust and Booker team up, and I don't know an expert on this time, so Bobby, help me out. Would you say that he's much like with Harlem Heat? Ironically, he organically begins to climb just on the kind of merit of his work, and how funny he is in this case. Also, is that what you say happens here?
Yeah, absolutely. Because they win the tag titles finally. I think it's Armageddon. So yeah, it's kind of the whole like rest of the year, and then kind of shortly after they kind of break up because he's going for the WrestleMania 19 stuff. So yeah, it was just like that.
Yeah, he just emerges as the fans' choice, right?
I want to point out how The Rock back then was very was a pretty gracious performer back then. I want to stress back then, but I remember him putting Booker over in the Battle Royal, like cleanly.
He did. Yep.
Yeah.
Because I think he wanted to get Booker back for beating Booker a few years ago, or a few years prior. And then The Rock does the same and gives Helms that win on Raw, and then
Yeah.
lo and behold, time to play the game. He ruins
Oh.
both. He ruins
Yeah.
both things. But
Yeah.
and now
That's what
there's
we do.
yeah. Well, anyway.
So yeah, this is a difficult thing because this has been covered a lot. We need to talk about WrestleMania 19. So, was you all watching this in real time, Bobby? Was this in your timeline? Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. You were all convinced he was winning, I presume, or not, based on the way the build was, or was Triple H at a point where you didn't know?
As a 10-year-old kid, I obviously really wanted Booker to win, and I felt like he was going to.
Yeah.
But that's one of those instances where that's one of those things you circle. Even as a little kid, where you realize that wrestling's freaking bad.
That's the thing. Kids, like,
Yeah.
I think sometimes folks, they imagine it as like, here is the hardcore fan who sees everything, and here's the kid who doesn't even know what's going on. Kids absolutely notice stuff. They just don't, the context maybe is lost on them. Like, absolutely happens. This is obviously an infamous deal for those of you that somehow do not know. I assume most of you are aware. Triple H not only wins the match after some very, very
Racist to say it.
Well, yeah, what I was more meant was it's like Finley vowed would be generous. You know what I'm saying? It's like that was more I was trying to figure out the best way.
He
to
literally
explain
says
that.
in the build, people like you don't win world championships. Yeah.
And I say, the reason I say Finley vowed would be generous is the out has been like he was talking about WCW wrestlers, which is legitimately like. I mean, that's got to be the one seed among Bruce Pritchard liars, right? That has to be. Like, this is one of the most insane things he's ever said, and that covers some ground.
Yes, because
go for it.
No, just because there's other shit. That fat bitch saying something like that, man. Like, there's other stuff in that fucking feud that, like,
it's blatant,
he fucking runs into Booker T in the men's room and then tries to tip him or some shit. Fuck off, dude. Like, yeah,
it's blatant. Yeah,
yeah, but I mean, to be fair, they spent a lot of money just to have Triple H beat WCW wrestlers. So it's I could see Bruce convincing himself of this point, but yeah, it's idiotic. And then I'm sorry, you open the cage, Joe. This one is making.
No, we need to talk about this, yeah.
Because also the finish is so fucking stupid because it takes Triple H 20 minutes to pin Booker T, and it makes everyone involved look fucking bad. It's the one like bad part about WrestleMania 19 that's one of the greater WrestleManias, but it's so insulting and fucking self-grandizing and just like to say it's one of the more Triple H like ego-stroking moments. You should understand how dramatic that is to say it, but it really is.
It is, and it's kind of just, to me, it's outrageous how the finish.
Can I add something? Sorry, Joe.
No, you're good.
Can I add something else to this? I recall a segment in the build to WrestleMania 31 years later after this, where Triple H in the build to the Sting match pulls Booker T off a commentary and goes, "Watch this, Booker T, you're fired." He fires Booker T on air and then rehires him.
Yeah, I wouldn't have
necessarily these two things are related, but it just shows that like.
I wouldn't have returned to that dynamic based on the history. I would have left it.
That's something that always stuck with me when it happened at the time. I'm like, oh, go fuck yourself. You know what I mean? It's just like it was like a cruel epilogue to what we already, Yeah.
The video package and like all the build is the kind of build you should avoid even if Booker is winning, But like the fact that he wasn't winning and was going to lose in that way is, there's a reason people still talk about it, right? Like it's some of the worst shit they did in that regard. And that, again, that's not a short list. Bobby, thoughts on all that is WrestleMania 19, because it is something that still to this day is kind of a leading candidate among.
Yeah, I mean, it was terrible. Like, you don't do that build. Like, they had Jerry Lawler running him down every week. They had Ric Flair running him down every week. And, like, to just have him lose after all that is just... And, Alex pointed out, too, after the pedigree, Triple H just kind of lays there for, like, 20 seconds and just goes over, covers him. It's a bummer, man. And, like, it's one of the only negative marks on that show. And... it just, it didn't need to be like that, because that could have been an opportunity to kind of, because the King Booker stuff, we'll get into it, like, that's fine, but, like, he was still much more of a kind of attraction and good worker in 2003.
Yeah, the whole deal of, like, the mug shot.
Yeah, like...
You're talking about Booker's hair. It's fucking awful. It's terrible.
It's more frustrating in the way the match is laid out too. Where Joe, do you remember they do the fucking boxing rules before the match, and and where Booker tells them, like, I'm gonna kick your punk ass or whatever. It's like, the fucking natural conclusion here is that Booker T whips this dude's ass and wins the title.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's
not what we do.
I think even if Booker was winning the strap in 3 minutes, I think they still did the wrong thing.
Went way too far.
Yeah. And I know you're not saying otherwise, but, like, with wrestling, at least you have that out of, like, but the point is it's a happy ending and the bad guy's going to lose. But he doesn't lose. He wins under the brightest lights on the biggest stage. It's, and not only does he win, this match brings a halt to, like, Booker's main event spot for, like, time, It's funny
how it happened with Scott Steiner, Goldberg, Booker T,
Nash,
Bing, Nash. Like, it's people, like, it's already out of control. Triple H literally, like, took resources from the company to beat all these people from WCW just to say he did it.
Yeah.
Like, the psychology behind that, and I'm not talking about in-ring psychology, brother. I'm just talking about, like, the screws that are loose up in that dude's head for, like, the steps.
Harley race me. Oh,
yeah. It's like, well, he had to beat he had to beat Ric Flair in Greensboro too.
Dude, like, the thing on Tough Enough where, like, the guy has the Goldberg poster and he loses his mind about it, and, like, he doesn't really love the business and all that shit. It's fucking weird, man. I don't know what, like, I don't know. It's and again, all of that is way less damning than...
the whole deal is I'm talking about, but it's a weird obsession he had, but none of those feuds were built around this, like, weird ideology of race and shit like that, and it's frustrating. And from what I recall, it's not that bad of a match.
Right.
It's just, it's a downer, to say the very least.
He is, and So, what does Booker do after that? Because, like, I know it's not top guy stuff. He just kind of with Christian.
They bring the title back to Christian.
He is in the greatest Survivor Series match of all time, the Team Austin versus Team Bischoff match.
Amazing match.
Mm-hmm.
He has the Unforgiven opener you mentioned, Alex, right? The All-Star 8-man, is
it?
That
was an 02, yeah.
That's 02, my bad. Okay, cool.
Oh, yeah, that match is fucking fantastic.
Yeah, which we would, we'll obviously do shots later, but okay, so that's 02. So he does the Christian feud, and this is, especially coming out of the Triple H match, he becomes one of the faces of, like, hardcore fans' discontent, right? Hardcore fans' frustrations with the product. Him and Rob Van Dam, I would say, were the leading guys of that. Would you guys agree? Like,
yeah,
if a team, there you go.
Yeah.
Because they're both kind of the wrestling fan wants more of those guys, and they feel they've been held down. And they wasn't wrong. I'm just saying that was the kind of growing sentiment.
And yeah, he wasn't a WCW wrestler, but in that reign, we were talking about Triple H made damn sure to beat RVD also.
Oh yeah. So when do they team up? Is that 2003?
Early 04.
Early 04. Now,
they're tag champs at 20. I remember that.
Mm-hmm. What does Booker do in 2004?
Goes over to SmackDown.
Right.
Turns heel because he's mad that he got put on SmackDown because Raw's the better brand. And, yes, that's literally the angle. Bobby's nodding his head because I know Bobby Ross
Yep.
does stuff in the recent years. And he has a program at Taker. He loses to Taker, and then he gets into a feud with John Cena and has a best of 5 series with John
Oh
Cena.
shit!
Brother.
For the US strap. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you have that. You have again, as we mentioned earlier, him and Ben
Same with
Morrison
JBL.
again.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have a whole bunch of stuff in that kind of US title region, right? That's basically the best put it. And then a new version of Booker T emerges. He wins the King of the Ring and he becomes King Booker, or King Booker, if you will. And that brings us to our final match of the evening, Great American Bash, July 23rd, 2006. As he challenges as King Booker, Rey Mysterio for the big gold, which of course he once held 5 times. 5 times. I don't even seen this match, to be honest. This is notable because it's where he wins the world title. It's a really good match, but Oracle, let's just jumpstart and go straight to this. It also features a historic commentary performance from John Bradshaw Layfield, who he would always do the King Booker thing, but he is out of control in this match, dude, right?
He is. First of all, the entrance is one of the great entrances.
Yes.
Booker, the way he played the King Booker gimmick was fucking awesome. The way he plays up like the regal king, who
Yes.
it's like snobbish and high class and all this shit is fucking amazing. And Charmel is tremendous in the role.
She's really good, yeah.
She was a very good manager.
She was.
And the JBL is standing up and just vomiting from the mouth every possible reference you could come up with, historical reference to royalty and monarchies over the
He does a monologue, right? It's like
it's unbelievable. This match is really good. There's some really neat transitions. My God Almighty, was Ray incredible in 06. Holy fucking shit, what a worker!
Yeah,
he was.
I had one of the all-time bad book title reigns, unfortunately. But
I was about to say there was at least one person that didn't think so, Oracle.
Yeah. Supposedly, the day that Ray won it, he told him the day he was losing it, didn't he? Apparently, couldn't wait to get the belt off him. Sad.
But this match was really good. There's some really cool transitions and stuff in this. Ray has a great comeback, gets some good near falls. But the finish to this, let me tell you,
it's time. Finally,
I had remembered. I remember the finish of this match. I always remembered it because they played up. The whole Chavo feud's a thing in the second half of 06, and leads to Ray's first truly major injury, which he has a plethora of, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But he Ray and Chavo have a feud through October. Then Ray goes out to get knee surgery. But Chavo comes out, and I remembered him hitting Ray with a chair. I did not remember that it was standing at home plate swinging a baseball bat. I did not recall that being the I did not remember it being that violent, but it was incredible.
Balls Mahoney called him the next day and said, "Lighten up, brother. It's a little stiff."
Hell, Balls was in the company, so I mean, there's a chance that might have happened.
Oh, that's right.
Wow. Yeah. He's red hot, brother. Getting ready for his big run.
Stealing my gimmick, brother.
So, here's a backstory around the chair shot. Not the shot itself, but this is such a great example of Vince had just lost this. Vince was mad about the way this was executed because he said Chavo didn't milk it. And Chavo was like, the whole reason it works is because I just suddenly swing the chair in here. If I stood there for ages, like,
Yeah.
everyone would know what I was going to do. He was like, it was already kind of predictable, but the fact that I just swung made it shocking. How did Vince not get that, man? Like, Vince was mad that he didn't, like, stand there for ages. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? That would have made it obvious.
A great example is the fucking 3 years later or whatever, when they had Matt Hardy turn on Jeff Hardy, is the exact same thing.
Yep.
They did that where Matt just stood there for fucking 20 years, like, you know, and you know what's going to happen. Yeah, that's like, I popped huge at that because he just comes in, like Oracle said, and he fucking Mark McGuire's it, raised head.
It makes it feel like an instinct, like a raw decision too, doesn't it? It makes it feel like he just said, you know what, enough of this guy. Like, it's fucking awesome, man. Jesus. Well, I never. Anyway, Oracle, sorry, what else did you want to say?
No, I was just gonna say, like, this. I remember liking this match when I watched it several years ago, but this match pretty damn good. Not great, but it's a very strong match. This was like the peak of the King Booker thing when he won the title, and then like he gets Regal and Finlay as his like entourage, and Regal would like, "All hail King Booker! All hail King Booker!" And he says it like 78 times in a row. And JBL does, you know, the whole shtick on commentary where he takes his hat off and fucking. It's a whole thing, and like, of course, you know, Booker and Batista. Booker beats the shit out of Dave Batista at one point backstage, or at a film shoot or whatever. And, they have very bad matches together, and Batista finally beats him. And
well, that's the thing. King Booker is not, you know, it's not.
Right.
It isn't really
outstanding though.
Yeah, it's not really where he's going to do the sort of, you know, the classical wrestling match. That is fair to say. And he's physically is pretty restrained by this point. But he is feeling it on this night. I think it's pretty clear. And this match doesn't have, because of the damage done to Ray as champion, it doesn't have a big fight feel. And he even gets some boos in the introduction. Yeah, but the guys wrestle
in the end too.
Yeah, but the boys wrestle it in a big fight way, right? I love the Booker's delivery of Eddie Can't Help You was like, whoa. He really tapped into something different, right, in this character. Some really, really nice work. Booker, I thought, really kind of thrived here as like a bully heel, towering over Ray and muscling him around. And Ray's selling keeps things engaging when admittedly, one of the things with Booker's matches, that as I watch more of them this week, Booker in control is not the most dynamic experience, has to be said, but Ray's so good.
Pretty
I agree completely, yeah. And I think that's why the WWE Benoit series is so much lesser than the because Booker in control is not very fun, but Ray makes it fun because of course he does. He's a master of that. JBL's reaction to Sharmell being ejected is hysterical. He also accuses Michael Cole being a socialist. Bob, what did you think of this match?
Actually, I did like it quite a bit, especially relative to the rest of the matches in Ray's title reign, because it's just, you know, Kali and shit. So this felt like, you know, incredible stuff. Huge fan of the King Booker stuff. It was time for him to finally get the title. I'm glad he did. And like Oracle kind of talked about, the title reign didn't go anywhere really, but like it's nice that he got it. Also, they uploaded this match to YouTube, and they don't show the chair shot, so that should tell you how brutal it was.
Cowards, pussies.
Erasing Chavo again.
Timing upside down is a pussy.
Speaking of such, can we talk about the fact that they've like made Vicky Guerrero part of the family again, and Chavo's not invited or like welcome?
Yeah.
What the fuck, man? What happened to the game I love? Anyway, I like this match. Contrarian, did you like this match?
We were talking about Chavo on a Contrarians episode the other day because he is going to be in.
Wait, what? Oh yeah, of course, yeah, Hollywood, right?
Yeah, I forget what movie he's going to be in coming up. It's like a big one.
Dude, he's really doing it out there. Like he's the wrestling guy. It sounds like. That's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah, I basically had to explain to Julio that like the thing he would know him from is that he trained the kids for the Iron Claw, like the Zac Efron shit. And then I was also telling him that I almost saw him beat the fuck out of a fan in LA WrestleMania weekend a few years ago, and it was awesome.
Okay, stop the program. Go for it. Tell the story, please.
Okay, all right. the bar there at the Millennium Biltmore, which was the WrestleCon hotel. I mean, we're all normal dudes. It's just all about don't be a fucking weirdo, man.
Yeah.
Like, I saw so many wrestlers that weekend. I remember, like, you know, bumping into like RVD coming out of the bathroom. Oh, hey, brother, you know, that type of shit. And I shared an elevator with Mickey James, just like, yeah, have a good night, that type of shit. You know, just be normal. So, like, the bar down there before one of the shows or whatever, I was just down there by myself on my phone, probably in the fucking Grin Grappler group chat, and like just having a beer and sipping it and just kind of seeing all the wrestlers. Luke Gallows is yelling about God knows what. And so I'm chilling there. And then Chavo's talking to, I don't know, somebody. But anyway, this fan comes up with his fucking phone and is taking a video and just like gets in their face like this of like, oh I'm out here with, you know, Chavo Guerrero. And then Chavo takes the dude's hand and just like throws the phone down. And then it's like, dude, get the fuck out of here. Like says that. And the dude's like, what the fuck's your problem? And I've got, you know, my bottle and like, you know, the thing where the top of my cords is up my lips. I'm like, oh, Chavo's about to fuck this dude up. And I was getting so excited about it. Eventually, the cooler heads prevailed. And by that, I mean the dude knew he was going to get the shit kicked out of him. So Chavo told him to get the fuck out of there. And it was a good moment. So, yes, I don't think I need to tell any grinners this. If you see a wrestler in public, just be normal.
Yeah.
They'll be really cool.
Or just be like me and run the other way. All right, I gotta get the fuck out of
here. Ben just mentioned it, but Chavo recently said, "This man, what you referenced, he just finished
That's it.
Spielberg.
The Spielberg movie. Yeah, he's going to be in the next Spielberg. So
good for him, dude.
Yeah, no shit. If the WWE doesn't want him, it's okay. I think he's going to be doing all right for himself working with.
It's just again, I'm sorry to hijack the program. I just can't. Spielberg. He said they've had no interest in giving him a Legends deal. Why, dude? Like, I'm not saying they can make 100 Chavos, but they can surely make a couple, right? Like, good God. It's very strange. Anyway.
It is. Yes. So, as has been documented numerous times on the Grin Grappler, this period of time in the WWF is a bit of a blind spot for me. I remembered the Eddie thing being a part of the build because Eddie was still warming the ground, and they're like, God damn it, there's money to be made. So, part of the build to WrestleMania was with Eddie, but I did not realize they carried that shit on for like 6 months.
Oh, yeah.
Why did JBL keep talking about Paul Bosch?
I don't know. It fucking ruled.
Okay. I didn't know if I missed something where like Vince came out.
Right?
Yeah, they're both. Yeah.
So, all right. Yeah, he just. But, okay, that's the JBL. He was world champion 2 years earlier. When did he go to commentary? Was he like injured or something at this point?
Yeah, he's back. Was shot.
After the angle where Taz. There was like an angle with Taz, like right before One Night Stand 2, and then JBL did commentary from June of 06 to December of 07 when he attacked Jericho at Armageddon 07. And
and then he
exactly because they did the 08 Rumble match, which I believe had the distinction for several years being the last WWF pay-per-view where someone bladed because Jericho ran the razor at that.
Because Bradshaw was like physically beat up enough that he was considering retiring before he became JBL. His back was destroyed. Yeah. So he's in rare form here, Alex.
Yeah. His commentary does not sound very much unlike Bob's Twitter feed these days, you know, in this match. Called out earlier in this Booker T's underrated size. This match really calls out how big Booker T is. My note here, Vince McMahon really hated Rey Mysterio. I don't know if he did. He hated the idea of him as champion. There's even that infamous legend about when he was completely overruled by Pat Patterson and everyone else at the booking table about it. The rumor was he said, fine, but he's not going to be my champion. And like you said, the idea is he knew immediately when he was going to lose it. And not to say Vince is right, but Ray is a wrestler, kind of like Jeff Hardy, and even like in the WWE when Bryan won the title, it's like, well, that's the story, them winning. It's like, well, what do we do now?
For sure, yeah.
But that didn't mean that Vince didn't he book Ray to like lose on TV every week?
Every week.
Yeah. Ridiculous. Booker
what a fucking idiot, dude. What an absolute fucking buffoon. Just cut his nose. It's just terror. Just ridiculous. Just burning money, you know.
It is. It's stupid because even like I said, the whole idea of Ray winning the title, that's the big pop. But you still got to do something afterward. by that logic too, you would say Cody winning is the thing, and then you don't do anything with it afterwards. And from my understanding, the WWE is on fire with what they do, and Cody's been doing all right with his title reign here. With Ray, it's exactly right. But he's also a fucking dude who wears a mask and shit. It's just a license to print money.
It's iconic.
Yeah.
It's just...
And can you believe that over the next, this is what, 06, so 15 years, Vince McMahon's brain would continue to deteriorate, man. But yeah, so anyway, a fun match. I have a couple questions for y'all. Nick Patrick is still here. How long was Nick Patrick in the World Wrestling Federation?
Shit, 2007, 2008. He's there for a long time.
I know Bob hates old Hebner. What did Nick Patrick have over these guys' heads? How did he con so many people, man?
Yeah,
I hate him as a referee. I think he's a terrible referee.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's even like when he gets into position for the ref bump, he stands there like one of the four of us, like being told, like, you're going to take this bump now.
And he has that horrible cadence too, where it's just like, oh, he's terrible.
There is a part where Ray's working his comeback, and they cut to this group of kids in the audience, and one of them just goes, "You can't see me," and I'm like, oh yeah, this is 20 years ago. Ray's final comeback, when the crowd by the end is pretty into Booker, and they start to boo Ray's comeback at the end, which is like, it's one of those ironic gimmicks that people start really getting into. And then Chavo comes out looking like a small town local, like former high school football champion who's now a drunk in his fucking off-brand Affliction shirt, and then does lay out Ray with an unbelievable chair shot. To me, probably the biggest pop of the entire match was when Booker's making his entrance. It's like while it's concluding, and it's like a close-up of his face illuminated in gold, and he just goes, "Thank you," and he closes his eyes and goes, "Thank you all." It's so good, dude.
The mannerisms are money, but I will say, even if it didn't translate to classic matches, I do love the way that Booker worked the gimmick into the way he did stuff. Like, he added different wrinkles to the way he would do things. It's it's ridiculous, but it's really fun. It is.
One of my favorite things of revisiting some of the Booker T King Booker stuff is when he would get mad, how the Booker T cadence in his speech would wear back in. He's all mad. He's like, "No, I ain't gonna stand for this, sucker!" Just that type of shit. It was and I think this, since we're here now, this might segue into he really relied from this point forward in his career on more of the performance aspect of it than fucking going hell for leather like he did with Rick Martel 8 years prior.
He certainly did. There are some, as Oracle makes some very nifty transitions here. I love that where he ducks Ray's moonsault and fires that super kick. The Bulldog being counted in the back suplex. I mentioned, and there's that terrifying Rana in which Booker almost gets spiked, where he has to kind of take the bump a short angle. Really, really good. But this was actually my favorite of the matches. Just I thought their dynamic was beautiful. Booker as the big bully heel, I thought was great. It made me kind of wish we got more of that in WCW, but I know that wasn't something that interested him at the time. So he loses to Batista, as Oracle mentioned, in some very unfortunate matches. And then he's back to being US champion level as King Booker, basically, right? He's in that tier again.
Yeah.
And his run ends at the hands of Triple H, doesn't it?
Yeah, his first match back after he messes up his leg.
There you go. Triple H sends him on.
Yep.
What we do.
Sends him out the territory, and he left the schedule, right? It was time for him to not do that schedule. That was the reason, right, Bob?
Yeah. He was getting old, man, and he was considering retiring. I think Don't Have an App brought it up earlier before when he was going to marry Charmel, and then Vince just brought her in, so that bought them some more time. But yeah, he was ready to call it.
The road kicked the shit out of him, dude. When people were considering leaving TNA, they had Booker do a speech to the boys about, you don't want to go up to WWE, man. It's the schedule is brutal. And obviously all the TNA boys were like, well, it's easy for you to say, but yeah. Nonetheless, quickly, this is a great question. So, Ben says, did Bob skip saying to press the like button 5 times as the most subtle bit ever? Bob?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes!
Mm-hmm.
Very convincing, I must say. Very good. All right, thank you. Yes, I'm aware there's some drug test situations,
Oh yeah,
folks, but that
he
would
was.
drag us into something we don't want to go back into. So
Yeah.
he heads to TNA, and there was a lot of excitement about about TNA because he's a WCW guy, right? He's the hardcore fans love Booker T. There's a lot of guys who wanted to see him mix it up within TNA. And I think he had other plans for TNA. I think he saw it quite differently to the way that people kind of had hoped. And I say this lovingly because I think this is a very funny thing and a very beast thing if you can get away with doing it. He may have the least motivated TNA run in the history of the company. And I'm aware again of the ground that covers. He looks like he could fall asleep in some of the matches he has in TNA. He does have a couple good ones.
AJ.
Just sort of by default. Yeah, of course. But his run in TNA is it's complicated in the sense that I think it produced a lot of memes and it's funny, but I also think it did damage the way like hardcore fans saw him because he was very obviously phoning it in. Now we're not
slow
really.
motion too. Like,
Oh my god,
he's going
dude.
there and
He was like Malachi Black.
yeah, like he just, him hitting the Harlem sidekick in 2008 doesn't hit as hard as he did, as it does in 1998.
Right. And for this quartet,
For those listening and not watching, Joe waited for me to take a big mouthful of food
Yes,
to
I did.
take that dig at Tommy Black there.
For this quartet, I think we all say this kind of lovingly, right? Because it's like, God bless, I mean, whatever. Do your thing, bro. But I do think the sentiment at the time was like, come on, Booker, man. You're one of our guys. We love Booker T. You got a chance to work with Samoa Joe and all these guys, and you look like you'd rob anyone else in the world. I think it did damage his standing. And I don't really give a fuck. I mean, I'm not saying he should.
It's a very weird thing in that you're exactly right that the contemporary reaction was that. But with like the younger fan base and the accessibility and the way social media works and like TNA putting everything, there's been this kind of, for me personally, this weird kind of like not revisionist history, but this weird kind of like retroactive celebration of things like the Main Event Mafia and shit, where it's like, yeah, that trash was not good. You guys weren't watching this in real time. And there is funny shit Booker T does in that, like that respect, that segment's funny. And the one where, it was Black Snow. I was trying to remember what Booker T's name was, but then Kevin Nash's name was Chet Lemon when they were commenting the show. Like, yeah, that shit's funny, but to your point, that's like part of it. And like Booker was like wrestling on those shows and like just again, it's not like he had to tear the house down, but he was phoning in matches with guys like Bobby Roode, and those Joe matches were not good.
Oh, they were, so disappointing. Because Joe, imagine any other version of Booker could have had great matches with Joe, Like,
and so, it is a weird thing now where we live in such a fucking clip era of the industry. So people see like these little moments from Main Event Mafia promos and stuff are like, oh, this shit was great. And it was like, no, it wasn't.
Right, and so recently TNA uploaded a couple TV matches. It was Kurt Angle versus Booker T and Kurt Angle versus Kevin Nash. It was like early 08. And I watched these matches like as a double feature. Dude, the Nash match smokes the Booker match. Because Nash at least like put thought into his match. Yeah. The Booker match is literally them just like sleepwalking through it. Like, it's wild. You mentioned the Bobby Roode stuff, which isn't very good either. And then he turns heel and he does do funny stuff as a character, and he starts doing the accents and stuff too, which is
I think what kind of sums it up, we did that however long ago, was that Grin along of Bound for Glory 09 where it was his last match and he literally just like came out to get knocked off the apron and then I got a knee injury, I got to get out of here. But you're right. People wouldn't believe it, but Nash I wouldn't say bangers, but Nash had some pretty coherent matches there in TNA for a while, and
Yes.
Booker was just kind of get paid, brother.
Is damning in the sense that like physically Booker had a lot more to offer than Kevin Nash. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's a shame, I think. And again, he doesn't care, nor should he. It's whatever. But I feel like it'd be really cool if we could do this show and there was this like extra bonus chapter where he had this like classic with Samoa Joe or AJ or Bobby Roode or whoever. He didn't, and that's fine. The accent stuff, apparently, like Cornette said that the TNA talent would ask him like, "What the fuck is this guy? Is he like auditioning for acting roles on our TV show?" None of the boys knew what Booker was doing, and Cornette was one of the agents then and said that Booker was like. It was like he was on vacation at work, basically. And Booker's even admitted it took him a long time, but I think he recently had a quote of like he got there and he kind of realized quickly what it was and whatever. Which fair enough. It's just
I was always wondering why he wasn't promoting it, and then I figured it out. He was embarrassed to be there.
Wow. That was exact beat for beat. But yeah, what was we? I'm sorry, that's completely.
I guess an offshoot of that could be he did have good matches with AJ. We almost talked about doing that triple threat from Bound for Glory. What was him, AJ, and Christian? I believe we talked about doing.
Yeah.
So, I guess the moral of that story is AJ Styles could do just about anything at that point in time.
He had a good match with anyone but Karrion Kross, but.
Oh, Jackie Crosby on the horn right now.
Yeah, he just suddenly woke up. He doesn't know why. What I was gonna say was the wrestling thing of like everyone ends up in the same spot. Like Booker was once the enthusiastic WCW guy. Like, man, I'm gonna take over the world. And then 10 years later, there he is in TNA being one of the lazy old fellas. Watching these fellas bust their ass. Like, fuck them. So, Main Event Mafia, and what I'll say is, in addition to what Alex said about how funny some of the stuff is, conceptually, the Main Event Mafia is an incredible thing because the idea is not just like Millionaires Club bullshit. The idea is that Sting is disappointed with how little Joe and AJ respect the old guys. And so he basically does a deal in order to make TNA better. He thinks that's what he's doing. And the idea is that he's doing this deal for the best of TNA and the young guys, trying to teach them something, but really the old guys that he's doing it with are purely selfish. And he learns that. And it all culminates with this moment where AJ is ready to be champion and Sting gives him a nod of approval and he goes and wins the title. In a broad strokes way, if you package this, it's great. Yeah. It's a great arc. Unfortunately, there are so many beats along the way that don't add up, and also there are months and months and months of the old guys just beating the ever-loving fuck out of the young guys, who, by the way, they're not that young at this point. This is 2009, dude. This is not like 21-year-old Samoa Joe and AJ Styles. They're like 30-year-old men, man. Like, it's... Yeah.
They give Samoa Joe a machete at one point.
That's right, exactly. Yes, exactly.
Those promos they would do were always so, like, amusing to me, just visually, because Sting would come out with, like, his, like... early 50s hair slicked back or whatever.
Right, yeah.
And like
the
fucking glasses and shit. And like
the with the salt upside down triangle, yeah.
Now, one kind of...
what the fuck is this shit?
One thing that is weird, that I remember we discovered recently, I'm going to try and bring it back up here, is after he leaves TNA, he leaves at the Bound for Glory show we mentioned, and then there's immediately rumors that he's going to go back when like the Hogan thing happens.
Brother.
And in May of 2010, he main events a house show in Louisiana in a title match with Rob Van Dam. That's just one thing he does in TNA. He never comes back to TV. He just does a one shot in Louisiana with Rob Van Dam for some reason. I have no idea why. I've never seen anyone ask about this. It's 7 months after he left. This isn't like a 2-week thing. It's later. He does some stuff in Europe, including a steel cage match with Scott Steiner, which I would like to see. Him and Scott Steiner work tags with La Resistance. And then...
Wow.
an incredible chapter occurs in 2011 in which TNA begin to promote cryptically the return of the main event Mafia, only for Kevin Nash and Booker T to show up in the Royal Rumble. And Booker has worked in WWE ever since. He wrestles a little bit, right? Or if he does some stuff with Cody, right, mate?
Yeah, so he has so when he comes back, he has the Rumble match, and then he has a program with Cody.
Codens.
And then he's in the WrestleMania 28
10-man
battle for the GMs.
that's right.
Thing.
Can you guess
Johnny
everyone?
Ace.
Can you remember everyone in that, boys? It's a 12-man match. Go on, let's see if you can do it. This is a team.
Okay, I'm going to try. Okay, let's see.
Okay.
The face team was Booker,
Yep.
Ryder, Santino,
Yep.
Kali,
Wow. Yep.
Kofi.
Yep.
and Truth.
Yep.
Okay.
Wow. Wow.
All right.
And the heel team,
Shaw.
And they I'm sorry, excuse me, they were led to the ring by Brie Bella and Hornswoggle.
correct.
And Nikki Bella was the leader of the heel team.
Right.
We can do this, Oracle. It was
McIntyre, Miz.
Ziggler.
Yep.
Yep.
Swagger.
Yep.
It was supposed to be Christian, but week of he got injured because his name's on the event shirt.
Yep. Is that 4? We've got 4 heels so far.
Yeah, you got Drew, Dolph,
Miz, and Swagger, right?
and Swagger. You got 2 more, yeah.
Miz, Swagger, McIntyre, Ziggler. So 4.
You're so close, boys. You're so close. You got.
All right. Let's think about this. Okay. Is it? Oh no, it's not because they were they were in the pre-show tag.
Primo and Epico.
Yeah.
Yeah, the pre-show tag. Yeah.
Fuck.
Would you like a clue?
Gender?
That wasn't Ginger.
No.
No.
Fuck.
Oh, David Otunga.
David
Yeah.
Otunga.
That's right.
David Otunga, and the last slot is a favorite.
No, it was Otunga, McIntyre, Ziggler, Swagger, and
Miz. We said Miz.
Miz.
Yeah. There's
Oh,
one
there's
left.
another one? Oh,
It's
it's
a
a 12
12
man.
man.
Oh, Jesus Jones.
Mark Henry.
Mark Henry, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
The chat helped us. The chat helped us there because I looked at
There
the
you
chat
go.
there. But
Okay, yeah, all right, I see. We got 11 out of 12 though. Me and Oracle deserve a little bit
I
of credit.
forgot Mark was even in that match.
I did too.
Why the fuck was he in that match after his Hall of Fame run?
The main reason I remember the Bellas being involved is because one, Nikki Bella, fucking tip of the hat, but Brie Bella said that Hornswoggle was the standard barrier for SmackDown Live, and I was like, "Oh my god!"
I can't believe you just said the words. The main reasons I remember the Bellas being involved were, and you thought we were going to take you seriously from there. That is funny, though.
It's obviously giving no credit of any sort to Johnny Ace, but it was very funny that he wore the Boss Hog suit for that match. That was good stuff.
Following WrestleMania 28, Booker headed to the UK for a tour with the WWF. He had the following matches. He and Brodus Clay teamed up against Christian and Mark Henry. He and Percy Watson took on Christian and Mark Henry. And in Glasgow, he teamed with Drew McIntyre against Christian and Mark Henry, which is, outside of the Rumble a couple of years ago, his last WWE match, and he's like an actual WWE Vault thing, because that's 4 Hall of Fame guys, right? Drew's obviously going to go in the Hall of Fame. Christian's obviously going to go in once he comes back. So that's pretty fucking cool, man. He's done some indie stuff. He does some stuff for his own promotion, obviously, is the main thing he does. He wrestled this year against Zilla Fatu.
He was in the 2023 Rumble in San Antonio.
23 Rumble. Yeah, which is his actual last WWE appearance. And I assume will stay that way, because
He was
Booker's now
He
like...
was the SmackDown general manager after Raw 1000. He got named as SmackDown GM.
There you go.
Oh,
he's
yeah.
He's got like 60 now, right?
He's also in
60 years old,
insane
yeah.
shape. He's got that
60,
TRT that
yeah.
Vitor got, man.
He looks great, man. 60 years old. That's incredible. So that is the Booker T story, folks. I guess before we wrap things up, any other matches from that last, God, 20 plus years of his career, WWE and TNA. Anything else that you'd like to call out? Now's the time.
I'll eventually get this on the show, goddammit. But that inaugural brawl from Invasion, the 10-man tag, he's a part of that, which is a good match. The Unforgiven 2002 opener, it is Test, William Regal, Christian, and Lance Storm against Booker T, Goldust, Bubba Ray Dudley, and Kane. That match fucking rules.
Awesome. Yeah.
And then just a few one-offs for Booker T, WWE. If you've never seen, I don't know, I find this stuff extremely entertaining. If you don't like just like this type of stuff, it may not be for you, but it's on YouTube somewhere. There's an extended, after a Raw went off the air, there was this elaborate rib played on The Undertaker where they tried to get him to do the spin-a-rooney. It's extremely entertaining. In that same vein, Joe, do you have the King of the Ring DVD or Blu-ray set?
I do not, no.
So the King of I don't remember what year they made this. It was after Sheamus won, so it had to be at least 2012 or 2013. There's a King of the Ring DVD, and there's also a King of the Ring Blu-ray set that is hosted by Booker T in the full King Booker gimmick the entire time, where he's like explaining the participants in the match, introducing the stakes and everything like that, and he does not drop the character the entire time.
Oh my God!
He's like in a
Oh,
throne.
you talking about the King of the Ring DVD they put out?
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to get it next time.
Yeah, and one of the matches on that is, of course, Shane McMahon and Kurt Angle, and the way he introduces that is just, as the king. He's like the billionaire's son, doing stuff like that, and it's and then I guess last thing of the WWE Booker T. This is more of an anecdote than a recommendation. I can't tell you what shows these are from, but me and my friends that I watch with here, it was something we lived for a very brief period of time, and we got so much joy out of it. When Brian Kendrick was the WWE Cruiserweight Champion, and they would do like those pre-show panels and stuff, and they would interview people on the shows, there was like a 2-month or maybe 3-month pay-per-view span where for some reason Booker T was just obsessed with trying to figure out how old Brian Kendrick was. And when they would talk about the match, he would like question aloud. He would be like, and one time Brian Kendrick was actually on it, and he's like, because you what, 36, 37? And just like waited for an answer. And like, it was, dude, I can't tell you how much joy we got out of that. And that was like a long joke for a while, that when me and my friends here would watch wrestling together, anytime Brian Kendrick was, we would start like pondering aloud what his age was. And it was just such a Booker T thing.
What was the one he had with Eric Rowan? Was it Eric Rowan who came on screen and he like got really fired up about how jacked he was or something? What was it?
I remember the Rumble when Road Dogg did a run in. He just kept saying, "Here we go, shimmy, shimmy."
So, all right. Any other things to call out before we do some final legacy talk before we look ahead to next month? Anything else? All right, wonderful.
I don't remember that, but the latest comment's hilarious. I don't remember this, but that's
spoiled that Brock was gonna. He read the betting odds. Wait, was this the era still where like the betting odds totally told you the finish? That was a crazy time, by the way, in the business. Yeah. Remember that? Like the matches, the odds would legitimately just be spoilers. It wasn't even like if someone was winning by DQ, the odds would flip at the last second because they're doing a DQ finish. Incredible. That went on for like a year or 2 years, 3 years.
Was Brock even enough for that Rumble?
No, I don't, because he did the Lashley match earlier. And
yeah, Bobby, you got any good memories of the 22 Rumble?
No, we're not doing this. We do this too often.
I just remember, all I remember is Johnny Knoxville and, coming in there and somebody investigating the Missouri State Athletic Commission.
Oh, jeez. Jones. Whew. Booker's commentary was like the last great Botchamania bit too that Matthew had. Of just like, and he still has that. It's fantastic.
Isn't there one where he like tells Cole that he should die or something on the middle of SmackDown?
Yeah.
Oh shit! All right. Final closing thoughts on the legacy of Booker T. Bobby, take it away.
Yeah, I mean, on one hand, it's kind of like we saw throughout these matches, just a kind of solid worker throughout, was able to kind of adapt to what was needed. And yeah, kind of revolutionary a little bit in his own way. And I also am just realizing that he wrestled the first match on the first WWE show I went to.
Nice.
It's him and Big Show against Orlando Jordan and the Bashams on SmackDown.
Well,
yeah, I know.
Can't all be winners, but that's
flew over to the Tokyo Dome for that.
Yeah.
I bet Doug Basham was fucking killing it in that match. Let's be honest.
Just hustling. Just
He came in looking like a 40-year-old truck driver.
will never not be funny that Cornette thinks like if they didn't shave his head, he would have been in the main event of WrestleMania.
No shit.
Alongside Matt Morgan.
Oh God, can't miss Prospect.
Oh yeah, how can you mess it up? It's impossible. Fucking Matt Morgan. Anyway, I think yes, Bobby. To your point, Booker's a really cool story in wrestling history and like a great success story. And obviously, he's gone to train grapplers. He now gets to watch Roxanne Perez, and he gets very fired up when she does something cool in her every wrestling match she has. It pops him huge. You can tell he's very proud. And I know he works with a lot of the NXT kids while he's, before the show on TV day. So he obviously, his legacy is extending in that regard. As a wrestler, like bell to bell, he's someone I enjoy watching, and I think his work's very pretty and very sharp. He's not someone that I would like swiftly line up for like the best of Booker T set. I don't know if it's I would need hours of, but I enjoy watching him wrestle. And he certainly is a bit of a wrestling icon, I think it's fair to say. I think he did have genuine crossover appeal, and people remember Booker T fondly. Even if at times he's complicated that occasionally, and probably will continue to in the future. He's someone I like, warts and all. So I consider myself a Booker T fan. That's my conclusion of the night. Oracle, final thoughts on the legacy of Booker T.
Yeah, one of my all-time childhood favorites. Always entertaining. He doesn't have the deepest match catalog. He's not the most, wondrous in-ring performer of all time or anything like that. But more often than not, Booker was always entertaining, even if it was like him, like kind of being, even in the TNA stuff with the character work. The bell to bell. You never want truly wanted to watch it at that period, but like he always has something to offer. Commentary, even as an authority figure when he was on GM on SmackDown. Just the years of the pre-show stuff, like just one of my all-time favorites. Somebody that I'll always see as kind of maybe maybe I might even put him in my Fave 5.
Oh
my God!
What a fitting note that is to conclude the Oracle Wrestling Thoughts. Alex, if you can follow that, brother, take us home. Any final thoughts on Booker T?
Oracle came through the curtain and said, "Follow that asshole."
Which, by the way, we should note, one of the funniest Booker things is that he said Harlem Heat used to do that after every match. And as someone said, and I forget which poster it was, they said, can you imagine the boys' confusion after he'd like come 20 minutes with nasties and he'd come through, follow that, fellas. It'd be like, I'd like to think I can, yes.
That's allegedly what Punk told The Rock at Survivor Series 2011 when he came through the grill after his match with Del Rio, of all people. He said, follow that, asshole. I'm just going to circle back to the point I made at the beginning here. Especially for the age I am, and like when I started following wrestling in the early '90s, Booker T has been someone in the wrestling industry that's extremely easy to take for granted, in that he's always around, he's always entertaining. What we said, bell to bell, he's not like the most compelling wrestler that's ever lived, nor is his catalog necessarily something that's like, Dynamite Kid-esque in, how many matches he has that you would qualify as like must see. But like I said, his longevity is insane. And even if it is just from like, look at this dude perspective, he has like this quality that is easy to take for granted, because it's like, there's a fucking pro wrestler right there, man. Harlem Heat was awesome. Just like, again, just looked cool as shit. And when they did have good matches and everything they did clicked, was fantastic. And, his guys went through several iterations of his career. Even if you want to do the thing, he kind of went from this fucking marauding badass to kind of a bit of a comedy character, the way it ended. You can say that if you want to, but when he became that character, he won, another world title in the WWF. And I think, in really thinking about this today, I texted the group. I said I never really appreciated the scope of his career until now. And I think that Booker T is a guy that probably a couple times in his career we could point to should have said, that doesn't work for me, brother, and didn't. But because he approached his career that way, he has a wider like scope of coverage than some of his contemporaries. Like, anyone that was like significant in the 90s, 80s, and into the 2000s, he wrestled. You think of guys that he like wrestled with that Steve Austin and The Rock didn't, or on the other side of it, you think of like guys like Sting and Goldberg and even DDP, guys like that Booker T went on to have the opportunity to work with. He worked with fucking everybody, and then he still went on to wrestle AJ Styles on pay-per-view. Like he that motherfucker wrestled Action Jackson in the Dallas Sportatorium, and that name I don't think is going to mean anything to anyone who ever listens to this show, but it means something to me and a lot of people around Texas. But he wrestled Action Jackson in the Sportatorium, and then he went on to fucking tag with Rob Van Dam in Madison Square Garden, and then, like I said, did a bunch of shit in the Impact Zone, and then ended up back again in the Royal Rumble in the Alamo Dome 2 years ago and whatnot. So you just think of like all the ground he's covered. And that's the weird thing about wrestling. If at any point he really did say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to lose to that guy. I'm not going to do this shit. On like a high level, it may have never afforded him the opportunities they got everywhere else that he got. So talking about a pro wrestling Hall of Fame is so weird, because the criteria is so fucking objective and subjective, excuse me. And, everyone always thinks of that as just like, well, how many 5-star matches did they have? I don't know if Booker T had a single one in his whole career, even like the Royal Rumbles he was involved in and whatnot. But I believe a guy like Booker T is a classic example. If there was like a real tried and true pro wrestling Hall of Fame, you would view him as someone like the year he was available, you could make a real case for it.
I agree.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I agree completely. And it's time to look ahead at next month's Grin Grappler. A peer of Booker T is up for, is a candidate here. So we mentioned earlier, actually, DDP. Right. Not quite. Not Stevie's. We'll get to Stevie, sure.
Fruit booty.
DDP, an Oracle favorite, is up for Grappler. Honors here. Crusher, Jerry, Blackwell.
Oh, my God.
Oh, baby.
Alex said Loki. I did throw a couple wacky guys from that era.
You know how you said, talking about, revival matches and then like teaching these, young guys to watch midnights and shit. Oh no. Put a Bronson Reed match on and just go shit. No. Let me show you how the big boys used to do the business. Yeah.
So a couple modern names that just, I don't think they're going to get in there, but it just popped me. Paul London and Amazing Red, I just throw on here because, like, I just need to be interesting, you know? Like, they're both. Amazing Red's really influential, and Paul London's work is fucking awesome. So, and then we have two really heavy hitters, one of which is very topical, and the other is kind of always going to be there for us. Shares a finish with one of the gentlemen earlier. Randy Orton is on the board, and so is John Cena.
Ugh.
So, I guess the challenge. I mean, Orton's one that I think, honestly, like, just wait it out. We'll do it eventually.
They're both April birthdays, aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do Randy eventually. I think, like, the question with Cena is this the perfect time or is this the worst time? I guess is the question. Bobby, what do you think the right answer is here for this next month's Grappler?
Yeah, I think Cena's probably not the best idea right now. I don't know that Orton's the best idea right now because I think those two are going to wrestle one more time in the next couple months here. So, honestly, I was very intrigued by Jerry Blackwell. I don't know a ton about him, except what I've heard in the Last Fan AWA journey.
Yeah,
I'm here for it.
My picks would be Blackwell or Paul London, because with Paul London, you could do like pre-WWE, WWE, and then post it, because that match he has with Roddy in like 2013 is fucking amazing too. That would be my two picks.
Okay.
Oracle, what are you thinking?
I mean, certainly Jerry Blackwell. I like Paul London and Amazing Red both, so I'd be down for either of those three.
Okay, Alex, what are you feeling on this one?
Immediate reaction is Paul London, because like we talked about before, he was like the first casualty of an ROH call up in the sense of like that dude was on par with Bryan Danielson and all those guys as far as an in-ring performer, and then he got signed. But anyway, I also have the immense curiosity of Jerry Blackwell, so either way with that, I'm content. You're going to have a very hard time getting me to watch 6 Randy Orton matches within a confined period, so I'm going to take that off the board right now.
I wonder if there's some value to Grin, Grappler, Paul London, and in addition, we do like a best of Blackwell Grin along. I wonder.
Okay.
I wonder. And the only reason I say that is
Blackwell's, the majority of his stuff is in AWA.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah. So we could do like a playlist, you know, and watch the matches.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I think
I'd be down for. Paul London would rip because I could try to. I mean, we have several other people we could finagle that match in, but that 4-way ladder match is like a classic in my opinion.
I think we have a lot of options for these matches.
Even if you eliminate the Joey Mercury face explosion, like that match.
That match is great.
Awesome.
It is.
I love a lot of their matches, dude. I tweeted about it earlier.
Lundrick is a great tag team. We are absolutely getting Lundrick matches in there. Of course, we'll probably have to. I don't know. There's Paul London's a good one because just in the Fed alone, you could. There's even the Fed, you could do like a Lundrick tag and then one of the Akio matches from Velocity. Like,
yes.
Yeah, you got the AJ match for before WWE.
Mm-hmm.
You got the Dragon match. Like, man, there's
the Michael Shane street fight. The
stuff after WWE is really interesting because you can see like he's coming back to a different scene, and it makes him stand out even more. I think at times. Definitely that Roddy match. That match is fucking awesome.
Remember when Davey Richards overshot that double stomp and almost killed him?
Oh my god, legitimately killed him. Yeah. Do they just like keep wrestling in that match too, don't they?
He went on to, he did a shooting star press for the finish after that.
listen. There's the Chavo match after WrestleMania 21 where he bust himself open and punt.
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
Have you seen this where he gets a crimson mask?
I have not. Full bat signal situation. This is for me, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think
like London gets a crimson mask and like Chavo just works it, and it's literally like gruesome. Like it's fucking awesome.
And what I like about Paul London too is like he's still doing his thing, but for grappler purposes, it feels like you could kind of treat it as a complete story. You know, I do think if he wants to, he could easily just work as an agent for one of these companies, but he doesn't really. He kind of just seems to do his own thing. So I think we could kind of talk about his story in completion. You know.
I will say this: someone who's seeing it live, it's very indie, but the washed-up lawn thinker gimmick is very fun live.
He's very, very talented guy, man. Very talented.
He's still decent. He's still good in the ring too, honestly.
Yeah, smart guy. a very interesting wrestling personality in the sense that he seemed like someone who was a very poor fit to be like to play the wrestling guy. You know, he seemed like he was very bad at that from what we understood of it anyway. But I don't know. All right, Paul London. It sounds like, and we'll do a best of Blackwell. We're trying to figure out. So the one thing I'd say about the best Blackwell thing is because of Mania, they make it like push, but that's saying we will do that. Like that's saying we'll do, and we'll pick out some Oracle can pick out some matches. We'll playlist.
And the playlist has to start with the Wrestle Rock Rumble so we can watch.
Of course, yeah, of course. All right, there you go. It works out for everyone. My God, what a time. Let's get some plugs and get on out of here, boys. I'm very excited for next month. I'm very happy with tonight.
Ben is exactly right. I'm pretty sure he's actually aware of that in the defensive line. I think he's very aware of that.
Oh, yeah,
He knows it's an empty act. He knows
very thoughtful about all things gross. Okay. Bobby O'Neill, anything you'd like to plug before we go out of here, mate?
Not that I know of. I don't know when I will next be on this channel. Probably at some point. I will not be joining you for the WrestleMania 15 Grin this week because that show is bad. But I hope you guys have fun. Yeah, I'll be back probably next week for something or another.
Yeah. The hard sell there from Bobby. Good stuff. I appreciate it. The Oracle of Wrestling. What would you like to plug, mate?
Have we confirmed with the Young Guns about the 30th?
Yes, we have. Yes, we have. Sunday.
Yep. I'm going to do my best. It's going to be 4 trios matches for School of Wrestling for Classic Lucha. It's going to be 4, not 6, but 4. I'm going to do my best to get these matches to Joe by Thursday afternoon. I'm going to try to do them by tomorrow evening, but we'll get those matches announced before the weekend so we can give everybody and the Young Guns and whatnot to watch the matches, and we'll discuss them on. I don't know the time yet, but sometime in the afternoon, evening.
Yeah, I think we got some flexibility. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we'll once we get the matches announced, we'll announce the exact time for Sunday the 30th as well.
Yes, sir. Absolutely wonderful stuff. Contrarian Alex, we mentioned Tough 20 earlier. Tell the people about that. Tell the people about the Contrarians. All that's come with that. Plugs now, mate. Go for it.
Yes, we discussed the first middleweight semifinal in which Chris Lieben was upsetted via cut after Kenny Florian unloaded the hammer of Thor in the form of an elbow in his eyebrow. The episode coming out this Friday, it's this middleweight semifinal number 2, Josh Koscheck and Diego Sanchez. And honestly, what was the best fight of the season until the finale? Yeah, we had I've had a lot of fun with that, going a lot of different places. Elsewhere, what we got going on? In light of George Foreman's passing, over on our Patreon, we're going to do an episode covering When We Were Kings, the Academy Award-winning documentary covering the famous Rumble in the Jungle. And over on the main feed, the Jack Lemmon, Marilyn Monroe classic, Some Like It Hot, coming your way soon. This god-awful movie with Hugh Jackman from a couple years ago called The Sun. That's the most recent one that dropped. And then...
oh, baby.
Yeah, we're recording this week, 3 from Hell, the trilogy finale to Rob Zombie's, House of a Thousand Corpses, Devil's Rejects, all that shit. So a lot going on, to say the very least. So we are thecontrarians.com is our main website. The Contrarians on all your favorite podcatchers over on YouTube and all across social media at Contrarian Prime. Be sure to check us out there.
Tremendous. I love it. Okay, folks. Go do that. It's a great, great time. And especially if you're intrigued by the dynamic of Steve All Caps talking Josh Koscheck. There's only one place you get that, right? There's only one spot for that. So check out the Contrarians. I'll be back tomorrow with the Guns we're doing an Elimination Chamber 2014 double feature. We're going to watch the Shield Wyatt's match. And we're going to watch the Chamber itself, the main event Chamber.
Yeah,
which I'm told is great.
That lost out to fucking Lockdown.
There you go.
How was Lockdown 2013?
Bad. No, she was okay. The Aces and Eights thing is actually done well. It's just, what they do is obviously not very interesting, but it's done well. I enjoyed the show.
Brother Joe, how about that Concussion City powerbomb Jeff Hardy took in the main event of that show?
Yeah, and what match was really good was that triple threat tag. Ironically, it was Chavo, Hernandez, Aries, Rude, and
Bad
Frankie,
influence.
and really good
Bad
match, man.
influence are good, man, especially in
Yeah,
that period.
really good team. They kind of had like a sort of baby Edge and Christian thing going on with the shtick, you know. I say baby; they're actually like 40 years old each, but you get my point. Yeah, so Chamber double feature is tomorrow night. Thursday, we are doing a TNA Grin along. Who's on TNA, you ask? Well, it's really quite simple. JC Jane versus Masha Slamovich, and Chavo Guerrero is in action this Thursday, live, TNA. And Nick Nemeth wrestling Leon Slayer, which I'm actually interested by. So that's like a compelling card. We're going to watch it live. You can sign up to see this on LNG Gold with the link below. So that should be very fun. And then Friday, as mentioned, WrestleMania 15 Grin Along, which, by the way, will be head-to-head with the USA Network's airing of SmackDown, because I guess everyone's just kind of watching it on Netflix that cares. I don't know what's going on. That's what the poll said. We should just go head-to-head with SmackDown. So that's what we're going to do this Friday. And then School of Wrestling Sunday. All right. That brings us to a close here. Bobby, final piece of advice for people if they enjoyed this show but have not listened to you so far.
Yeah, you go ahead and smash that like button. That's the third time we said it, so it's an odd number. You're good to do it. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, onward.
Thank you, Bobby. Have a great night, folks. Keep grinning. All out and enjoy this outro. Goodbye.